a short of a chair today. Councillor Bengry is unfortunately not well. Neither is Councillor Barfuss able to make it here today. Both are under the weather. So what we need to do is to have a nomination for a chair before we can proceed.
I nominate Mayor Kronen to take the chair for the meeting tonight.
All in favor? Thank you, Dr.
You have a nice comfortable chair right up here.
Thank you.
Would you like a name?
There you go.
Thank you. All right, we will start our meeting by thanking the media for being present today. René Sibon for the Temple Star and Corey McCarthy for Channel 32. And we will ask Councillor Edmonds to offer a word of prayer for us, please.
Heavenly Father, as we gather here tonight for this meeting, we ask that I will guide and direct us in the things we say and do, help us to make wise decisions with those items which are on the agenda this night. We ask that I will guide and direct as we do this, and we ask that I will bless those that aren't with us at this time, that they may be made well so that they can join us for the next meeting. And as we ask, come to the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. We have the agenda right here, and any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Peavoy will move to adopt the agenda. All in favor? Thank you. We have our delegation, and we're happy to see Ryan Dick there from OSC. Regarding the land use bylaw, this is the next document that needs to be reviewed. And so, Ryan, if you'd like to come forward and help us with this document, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. I've just got a brief little overview today. And as you know, we passed the municipal development plan the other day, and I brought the printed copies today, so I'm going to leave them downstairs with Jeff to distribute as he sees fit there. And this is a fitting time to commence on the land use bylaw review, being immediately after the municipal development plan. If you move down to that second slide there, Jeff.
You got the remote, it should be working, just check that out.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, and make sure your mic's on.
Right on.
I'll get you on your side.
Okay, you can hopefully see on the chart there, or maybe it's in your package, but this is just trying to, where the land use bylaw sits in the hierarchy of planning documents. You can see towards the top there, the municipal development plan, and we've got things like area structure plans, area redevelopment plans, and those are statutory plans. Then there's plans that aren't statutory, but inform and are part of our land use making decision framework, economic development plans, etc. The land use bylaw, you can see the red arrows, that's our regulatory document. So we've got our statutory plans, and we've got our land use bylaw. Every municipality in Alberta must pass a land use bylaw. So like I say, it's a more regulatory, prescriptive document. It's sort of a detailed blueprint that helps implement the statutory plans. So its purpose, among other objectives, is to divide the municipality into various districts to do what we call use regulation. So we allocate our permitted and discretionary uses. If you're not a permitted or discretionary use, you're a prohibited use, unless someone chooses to amend the land use bylaw. So in very short, permitted uses are what we refer to as a use by right. Someone has a right to that use if it's a permitted use in that district, whereas the discretionary uses are things that may be appropriate in certain circumstances or locations, and in others maybe aren't. So a discretionary use can be refused on the basis of use alone. So those are important things to remember as we prepare the document. Yes?
Ryan, just for clarification, is it possible to ask questions as you go?
Oh, yeah, well, it is.
Current provincial law structure, a land use
is basically prohibited unless otherwise stated that it's permitted in the land use bylaw.
Yeah, unless it's expressly listed in a particular district, it's prohibited. So the only way to facilitate making an application for it is to apply to rezone to a parcel where it's listed, or to apply for a text amendment to add the use.
So and it's just kind of goes against what some people might think, which is anything goes unless it's prohibited.
Yeah.
But really, we're kind of saying, according to the provincial structure, the legal system, the way it is, it's actually prohibited unless it's permitted.
Yep, that's right, and that stuff
Okay.
comes out of 640 of the Act, talks about that stuff, yes.
I was going to suggest too that just because something is permitted as a discretionary use, it doesn't necessarily mean that the neighborhood will like that being permitted. And so isn't that where you send around letters asking people what they feel, and they have an opportunity to say something about that? Like, for instance, if there's an apartment building going up in an R1 district,
Yeah.
maybe the neighbors don't want that multi-use
Yep.
building there, but it still could be permitted if people are okay with it.
Yeah, it could be approved, so that would trigger the referral process, and in most cases, that would go to the Municipal Planning Commission. You know, we always, you've got a group of 5 members, you know, they're more likely to make a better decision with 5 people versus one individual administrative member. So, and then any individual who claims to be affected can appeal a discretionary use. There's no right to appeal on a permitted use. Again, it's a use by right. Get to talking about property rights. You know, you list it as a permitted use, you better be prepared to see it in any place where it's districted. Yeah, so that's sort of an overview of some of the things we have to do pursuant to the Act. And then there's a lot of things that we may do.
Just shoot it over at that laptop there, Ryan. Let's see. Did you break it already? Yeah, maybe.
Ricochet off the floor.
Yeah. That's right.
Carpet's a very good conductor, right?
Tyler's supposed to have all this figured out for us.
Do you need that, Jeff?
There you go. I'll stand here for you.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, you don't understand.
Oh, that's good.
Well, this was just to back up a bit, and to you know, that whoever ultimately forms the committee for this document, we have to think about the various determinants of planning and land use. We've got competing interests, environmental interests, social, of course, economic, and then at the most basic level, what is land use planning? We talk about current problems and ideas for the future, solutions for current problems.
Just now you mentioned the committee. Municipalities normally form a committee,
They normally do.
and that's comprised of council members and public, or?
Well, it varies. Sometimes, you know, if they're confident with staff doing it, maybe it's just staff. Oftentimes, there's benefit in having a diverse membership. You get people with the business interests in the community, you know, someone environmental interests. You try and represent a wide swath, you know, as much as possible. But it is a bit of a commitment, right? You know, so people got to be prepared to do that.
So you would, in that case, developers or people who are in the real estate business or whatever, those are people that could give a good input into a committee like that?
Yeah, I think that's a good start. You know, people with land development experience, if they're, you know, someone willing with some development background or some legal expertise, you know, those are good fields to start with.
And you mentioned it's a rather large commitment. Do you have a time frame that is, you know, within the realm of normal for this committee? It's
Yeah.
obviously an ad hoc,
Yeah.
3 to 6 months. What are we looking at?
I think we've got a
Oh, you
timeline
covered.
at the back, yeah, so maybe we'll get to that.
Thanks.
You betcha, yeah. Councillor Cree, did you?
Well, maybe we will get to that. I was going to suggest, we do have that committee that sits in place, right, Jeff? Was it the?
We have a planning committee.
Planning Commission, Development, your appeal, they're the people that approve the discretionary uses.
Isn't that
But you
the
need
Your
people with-
MPC has that ability.
Okay, that's the MPC.
Yeah. So you have an appeal board of citizens at large. If they don't like the ruling the MPC gives them,
Okay.
they don't meet very rarely,
Uh-huh.
very rarely, maybe once since I've been here.
Yeah,
But they do exist, yes.
right. So, and there are members on that, at large on that committee.
How often does the MPC meet?
Monthly.
Every month?
If a
As
permit,
needed.
yeah,
As
if a
needed,
permit
yeah.
has come through.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we can skip to the next one there, I think. Jeff?
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna get it all crazy
Yeah.
for you, there you go.
Yeah, so talking about how, breaking down the document, this is generally how it's broken down. We've got an administrative section at the start. It talks about the various administrative provisions, enforcement provisions, notification, referrals, variance power, all that sort of stuff you're going to generally find at the front of the document. Then we get into land use districts, as you know, your conventional land use districting, residential, commercial, public, industrial, stuff like that. You can get far more creative. You know, you generally see, the bigger the community, you can have 30, 40 of these things if you so desire. And there's no limit to it. One thing with land use districting, there is something called direct control, whereby council retains, they are the development authority. So that's sort of a unique provision that we use in situations where a conventional land use district doesn't fit. We've got a unique piece of land or challenges, so council, all the development stuff comes before council. And also unique to direct control is that there's no appeal provision. So council's say is final, just like it would be with a rezoning request or something like that.
Not that this is ever going to happen here, but there are situations, if I'm correct, in other communities that have direct control because of this marijuana for health reasons growth, and they're putting those into those specific areas, and the council are keeping direct control over those areas. Is that an example of that?
Yeah, and that's something a few of the communities in the Orsk region have done, and up in Vulcan County, that's what they chose to do. If someone wants to pursue a medical marijuana application, they have to rezone to direct control, and all the stuff's going to come before council. Yeah, so that is an option that's been used recently.
So, Ryan, on the other districts, you say there can be, a large number of different types of districts. I mean, we have, R1, R2 commercial, and now are the other districts that might be designated, are they kind of a package deal, or can you kind of custom create, a zoning district,
Yep, you definitely can, and sometimes you'll see, a unique type of development comes in, and the restrictions in any of the current districts don't really fit. We tailor a district for that particular development. Not uncommon.
Okay.
So going down the list there, dimensional standards and setbacks, those are typical things, part of the development regulation. We'll talk soon, or maybe I'll touch on it now, about variance power. So important to remember that the Municipal Planning Commission has omnibus authority. They have unlimited authority to waive any measurable setback. So any setback, lot coverage, building height, anything like that, something with a dimensional type standard, a number associated with it, they can waive. However, they can't waive use. So we get back to, if it's not listed, we can't waive it, right? So that's a matter that has to come before council, if anything different is to be contemplated. Specific standards in the bylaw, like we have now, various schedules, general stuff, standards for more specific uses. We generally find standards specific to signage. For whatever reason, signage warrants its own set of regulations, and that's usually makes up the thing. So our current one is from 2009. And the purpose and intent of this thing, one thing that I think, in talking a little bit to staff about this, and I think this is the direction that a lot of communities are going, is towards a more graphic-oriented document. So I think that might be something we want to pursue. But really, this is an update. I don't know that the bylaw hasn't been working very well. There's definitely some stuff new stuff that we're employing in all the bylaws throughout the region. So it really is more of an update. But there will be things that require some critical thinking and discretion. You talk about garage suites, and alternative housing. That's, we probably need to poll the community. Is there a desire for housing like that? various forms of secondary suites above an attached garage, above a detached garage, and what have you. Do we want to open that up, or do we want to leave it as is? We've got a new MDP, which told us that we want to look at some new things. And then, of course, looking at the SSRP, which was approved on September 1st, 2014.
And right on that, it's, and we've heard, it's good to revisit the land use bylaw and refresh it every 5 years or so.
Yeah,
So we're due.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
It's interesting, right now, the big issue is garage suites, secondary suites, and Calgary's had it on their radar now for about a year,
Yeah.
and they keep on going back and forth. The council has voted against it, but the mayor of Calgary keeps pushing it, and it's back on the table again, and it seems in certain areas that it's gonna happen now,
Yeah.
you know. And I know in Lethbridge, there's already areas of the city that have them, and so they've been on board for some time now. Maybe that's something that might have to be looked at here as well, because there is a shortage of housing rental units all the time.
Well, that's the thing. We're tasked by the province with providing a wide range of housing opportunities, you know, a means to encourage people to make further investment in their property. And this is one example where we might consider a new district. Maybe we say, well, garage suites might only be appropriate, you know, we want to craft a new district, and you got to rezone in order to have the opportunity for a detached garage suite or something like that.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, we've got some unique properties here in our community, you know, half-acre lots and,
Yeah.
you know, third-acre lots, which are, compared to Lethbridge and Calgary, they're huge. And certainly, something like that is something you could look at, but you wouldn't want to, in a high-density area like the West End, where the lots are so close together, and you wouldn't want to do that, but in some of those bigger lots, you know, Councillor Creed's got a couple of acres over there, you could have a couple of them.
Yeah, that's, maybe there's a certain size where it's appropriate. All these things are
Yeah.
part of the equation here we'll
Yeah.
have to look at. So talking again about a user-friendly document, really just an example up here. I kind of like these charts that some people have been using in the new bylaws. You've got a certain type of use. This gives you a really easy way to find where is this use, where does it fit? You know, just a few examples up here of how that might look. And this on the note of garage suites and alternative housing, you see in the top right there some examples. These things can materialize in a number of different ways, and a number of different issues commonly associated. You know, you got people that the only access is off the laneway. Now there's privacy concerns with adjacent landowners. You probably want to consider if you're going to require them to provide amenity space in the form of a deck or a patio so they can get reasonable enjoyment on the property, stuff like that. And a few topics up here that I think, ones that came to mind when I was preparing this, like we said, new residential districts, residential lot sizes. We've got minimums in all our districts. Is a maximum sometimes appropriate? And I think it is. Talk about maybe a heavy industrial district. Sometimes we'll find situations where say a town's got one industrial district, and you'll find that lower order uses that aren't noxious or don't, you know, emit much of a nuisance, they'll take up some of this land. It should be allocated or set away for heavy industrial or stuff that releases a nuisance, right? Sometimes we've only got certain areas in the community where heavy industrial is appropriate, and we don't want to give it away to sort of lower order uses that maybe could do fine with a different parcel of land. There's a number of other things here. I don't know that I'll touch on any individually unless you have any questions. One thing we would do, look at the variances we've issued over the last 5 or 6 years, understand where the issues lie with the bylaw. That'll give us a good idea. A telecommunication tower siting protocol, most communities are going to that now to help give guidance in the cell tower process when that comes along. Medical marijuana, a new issue for all the communities, and various number of things up there. So that was really it for the presentation. Oh, go ahead.
What about the possibility of renewable energy? Where is it addressed in the land use bylaw?
Yeah, we've got a schedule in there now that Schedule 10 sustainable energy systems, but that is something, you know, within our regulatory abilities. We would address all the the full gamut, or wind, solar.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that it does fall a little short, it's maybe just a little dated,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So here was sort of a sample timeline I came up with. I mean, this process is going to be a bit elastic, safe to say it won't end up being exactly like this, but this is what I thought would be a reasonable kind of estimation. Yeah, good things take time, and they often take longer than than they're originally conceived, but it does depend on how, how much involvement we want with the committee. If council wants to sit as the committee, how many meetings we want, that's going to factor into this timeline.
But I think it would make sense to have people who have a little bit of expertise sit on that committee. It seems to me that if you want better input,
Yeah, I
you
think
probably need a little bit of people with expertise on that committee.
it definitely wouldn't hurt, and in some places, you might take criticism for not having a committee like that, at least offer the opportunity. If we don't have any willing members, well then we reconsider. But the MPC would be a good start if those guys are willing. And,
Right, yeah.
You might want to poll them, poll the SDAB, poll the community, poll the chamber, however we feel is best. I did come up with a bit of a sample questionnaire,
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
which I think would be a good start either way. So in the meantime, if it takes a little time to establish the committee, we can get the ball rolling with the questionnaire and then get started.
good.
Now, the only thing I noticed there that might seem a little short is just the open house through reviewing and amendments. That seemed a little, historically, is that all done within a month?
Well, I mean, if we're,
Especially in December.
Especially in southern Alberta?
yeah, like, with the MDP, we didn't get a lot of community feedback, so assuming the same, then maybe. But if if there's contentious stuff, then hard to say for sure. Yeah, that might be a little tight, especially in the month of December, you're right.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Any more questions for Ryan? Ryan, when do you see this committee being formed? What is, in your mind, the right timing to have that committee in place?
Oh, I think I'm ready to start of April.
Okay.
So if
Now, on your end, if I may ask, you're our representative for this process through the whole thing. Will there be additional staff members from ORS assisting, or?
Yeah, there'll be a little help from some of the other people. I mean, sort of all the planners stay abreast of what's going on, but we, generally 1 to 2 people per project.
And are you thinking these are like once a month meetings, or sometimes more than that?
Well, I guess it depends how much they like my preliminary draft. So there's a lot of sort of baseline data we got to look at in coming up with this draft. I think there'll be a kickoff meeting, sort of a visioning thing, establish values and how we want this thing to look, at a cursory level. Come up with the draft, and then it probably starts to get a little more intense.
Yeah, what you're calling a kickoff, is that, and visioning, is that kind of like a brainstorm meeting that we would include, a lot of members in, and then maybe whittle down from that to the actual committee that'll do the whole process?
You could,
So we have a lot of stakeholders maybe at the visioning meeting?
Sure, yeah, I mean, something to start, get people thinking and, sort of the impetus for how to think about, what we're going to do, philosophical type stuff, not getting into too much specifics probably at the early stage, but so it could go that way and you narrow it down, it's council's prerogative.
Okay, so that is maybe something that we will need to discuss as to the process to be able to come to having that committee put together. And so we have essentially 1 month to get that going.
Or whatever works, if we don't start till May.
Yeah, but I mean, the quicker we follow your timeline, the more chance we have next January to have a document in place,
Yeah.
which is not a bad timeline, really.
I agree, yeah.
It will be just after 2 years of us sitting on council, it wouldn't be a bad thing to have one document ready.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, I appreciate that input. Okay, we have another delegation at...
Madam
Excuse
Chairperson,
me.
if I could request a bit of a change in the agenda, I have Lloyd Stewart here to discuss 6A. Tyler's with us for the duration of the meeting because
Okay,
I'm his ride out of here after the meeting. So, he's not going anywhere. If we could jump to 6A, Mr.
Wait.
Stewart can get home after.
yeah, I think if council is all right,
Yep.
okay,
Go
fine.
for it.
So, Mr.
Made
Stewart,
his breath to talk about cats.
Thank you,
we're going
Ryan.
to talk about the cat bylaw, and I don't know if you've done a little bit of homework, and if you had forwarded your input to Mr. Stewart. I did that, and maybe some of our points that we have will come back into what has been redrafted. But we didn't get a redraft, did you? You didn't give us any other document?
I didn't know whether or not Graham was going to do that or not,
Okay, all right. So that's okay.
but I can touch on the points that you brought up.
Yeah, if you don't mind, because I think that probably is something that would be similar to a lot of us. Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Stewart.
Okay. I did receive several comments from the mayor here regarding this cat bylaw, and justifiably so. Especially when we call a cat a dog.
Yeah, right.
We, there seemed to be some question about the definite, or if we need the definition for an aggressive cat. We have actually taken an aggressive cat out of there altogether and put it as a problematic cat,
Okay.
because it's not necessarily, a cat very seldom is aggressive unless it's a feral cat.
Right.
Having dealt with 7 of those this last month, I think I have a pretty good idea what a feral cat is now. And they can be aggressive. You asked to be enlightened on the understanding between a cat fancier's license and having 2 unscathed cats. There was a problem there where and there was problems throughout the document. We recognize, thank you to the mayor for bringing those things to our attention. The cat fancier's license is for anybody who wants to have more than 2 cats, but not more than 4. And the age limit on those cats are over the age of 3 months old for any cat. The licensing process and everything else, we've set it 3 months instead of 6 months.
Oh, so that change hasn't been made on here yet? Mine
No.
still says
No.
6 months.
Yes, that's correct.
These are changes that have been made to the document that you have in front of you.
So
Okay.
there will be 3 months instead of 6
Okay.
months.
So presently, well, historically, there have been people in town who've had 10, 15 cats. Are we going
And there
to,
still
are we
are.
eliminating that? Is that what the intent of this is to do?
Yes, that's the purpose of this.
How do you approach people who have had
Well,
cats for 10 years and probably got 8 or 9 of them?
Some of the people that have had cats in the past have been told that as their cats die, they will no longer be grandfathered in being able to keep 10, 15 cats, whatever number, anything above 4. And even if they don't need a cat fancier's license unless that the number of cats they have had in the past reduces down to less than 4.
Okay, the question, I guess I'm coming around to who determines that that number is appropriate? Because what one person could take care of 10 cats compared to the neighbor who may have 10 cats is as different as night and day. Because I know I've had clients, when I go to sell their house, list their house, I go in and I mean, the place just reeks of cats. But then I've gone into other places where ladies got 8 or 9 cats. The house is clean, there's no smell in there, those cats are taken care of. And so I have a problem with limiting those cats to those type of people that are responsible, that will take care of them. That's one issue I kind of have.
I haven't found any of those in Cardston yet.
I have. I see it more than you because I go into a lot of
I went
houses,
to a lot of houses, a lot more houses than
you know.
He doesn't
They
get
don't
a
welcome
badge.
me in as easy as they do.
Jeff?
I don't want to, I don't want to be heavy-handed.
I think Jeff wants
The
to.
reason it's limited to 4 is
I was just gonna say, to answer your question, who decides if 4 is appropriate? You do, as a council.
Yeah,
You decide that number.
Thank you.
So if 4 is not the right number,
Yeah.
then 4 is not the right number. But I would suggest Lloyd's bringing back a number that would follow best practice, that more often than not, a number of
Yeah.
cats in a house is problematic.
yeah.
Then it's clean and tidy and sanitary. More often than not, it would lead to problem. But the answer in short is
Yeah.
you.
Because there's people who have 2 cats and it's terrible,
Yeah.
you know? And so it just boils down, who's
Same with
responsible?
dogs as well, though.
Yeah,
What I did on this document is actually go around to other communities to check what the average was, and 4 seemed to be the average for most municipalities within our southern Alberta area, including Calgary.
If I may, just a quick question. Before we go into specific policy line by line, verse by verse here, can you just kind of give us a general sense of the most common cat-related problems you deal with on a regular basis?
The most common cat-related problems I deal with at present would include cats defecating on somebody else's property and feral cats,
Feral cats.
which people, they let their cats go and have kittens, then they don't worry about the kittens, and the kittens become a neighborhood problem. That was the case this last month, when I picked up 7 cats in one location, and I picked them up in less than 2 days. So it's very obvious that that's a problem. We also have a problem with, in some areas of town where somebody is actually feeding feral cats outside. And they go up there every day and make sure there's food and water for those cats. And it becomes problematic. I was told at one time to just let it ride and see what happens. They've actually taken some of those cats and taken them up to Calgary, to the spay and neuter people up in Calgary, and had them spayed and or neutered. And it's anticipated that over time that feral cat colony will cease to exist. But mostly it's cats that are defecating in other people's property.
And what do you currently do? I mean, you know, aside from what we have here, what's your current process?
Well, what I do right now is ask the person if they're willing to go to court. Because, of course, if I'm going to give somebody a ticket, I have to have a witness that says, yes, this cat who belongs to this person was defecating on my property. And in most cases, they're not willing to go to court. So I go and tell them, well, you better keep your cat inside. I could set up traps in the neighborhood if the complainant asks me to set up a cat trap in their yard. I'm obliged to do it, and if I catch the cat, then they'll be paying to get their cat out of the pound, or they'll relinquish the cat to be disposed of. And when I say disposed of, they go to a
somewhere else.
animal shelter to be adopted out, somebody that'll care for them enough to not let them wander the neighborhood.
They don't go to cat heaven?
Well,
That's
eventually
probably-
they will, but not from my standpoint. I think I introduced the no-kill policy to the town a few years back.
Now, one last follow-up on your report. You said feral cats probably the majority of your calls. Right now, is there ever any success in kind of finding out who's responsible, and is there consequences for that if you're able to identify, hey, this is the family that's responsible?
If you're able to identify them, then you could ticket them. But in most cases, and I would say all the cases I've had to deal with so far, nobody is willing to go to court and testify as to who owned the cats that were the problem at the time, or who brought them in. And I'm sure you've probably seen the articles in the paper where I've suggested to people that they don't feed their own cats, let alone somebody else's, outside their domain, so that they, I mean, there are still people that do it, and that's why we have problems with skunks and raccoons and fox and other critters that roam the neighborhoods.
Councillor Edmonds.
Is there a fine for feeding feral cats?
No,
Should there be?
that would be up to this council, not me.
I would like to see it.
Well, I think it's important, write it down in your notes, because I was thinking the same thing.
But here is the issue, if you cannot find out who feed them, so who you going to give the ticket to?
I would say anybody who has cat food out on their back porch is feeding feral cats, as well as their own.
Not
All the
necessarily.
skunks and-
My cat likes to eat the tuna juice, and I can't stand the smell of it in my house, so I stick it out on my back porch, and my cat laps it up in 2 seconds flat. But I'm not gonna ever eat it in the house. I don't like the smell of it.
Okay, well, that's an aspect we need to look at. Mr. Stewart, you want to carry on and try to see a few
Yes.
of the points that we may need to fix on that bylaw?
Okay, so we covered the area where it's now 3 months instead of 6 months on cats.
I did want to follow up on that. So 3 months instead of 6, what prompted that change?
Because at 3 months, a cat can quite easily get along well on its own without having to be in a family setting. I mean, most people start farming their cats out when they're 6 weeks old because they're being weaned by them. So we're giving them an extra 6 weeks to get to dispose of their cats, the kittens that their cats have.
Essentially, it's because there was a lack of congruency between one clause and another, so it needed to be kind of...
Yeah, I've had that experience of farming out a litter, and I just know sometimes those last couple of kittens, because they're the ugly ones, right? You need a little extra time to find a happy
Yeah,
owner
yeah.
to take the last 2.
This was a question I asked also, what do we do in between?
Puppy cat, eh?
Maybe 4 months rather than 3, I don't know.
Okay, there was a question also about the correlation between a tag and a license. A tag is the tag that you pay for to put on your cat so it can be identified as to who the owner is. A license would only be referring to a fancier's license if you were to apply for one and qualify to receive one, and of course pay for it.
So if you have a normal 2 cats, the limit, standard limit, you would not have to buy a license per se?
No, it's a tag.
It's a tag.
Okay,
But not a
well, that's-
fancier's
Identification
license.
tag.
Okay, but if you look in your definition then,
Definition or schedule? Because in Schedule B, they're listed as licenses. and I
Okay,
think
tag,
under
under
definitions, it says a cat tag means the annual tag issued by the town of Cardston to an owner for each licensed cat.
but you see,
But you
use
have
the
to put
word
the word
license.
licensed in there because you're actually permitting them to have that cat on their property.
No, this is why I wondered, what is the word license if a regular cat owner with 2 cats does not need a
Well, I would
license?
assume that the cat tag would be the license to have that cat, right, on your
Yes.
property, whereas a fancier's license is a different
separate
thing.
document that verifies that they qualify to have
Right.
more than 2
Okay.
cats at that
Right.
residence.
So,
That's the fancier's.
so if you have a cat, 2 cats, you own 2 cats, there will be issued those little tags, but
Tags.
no paper to go
No
along with
paperwork.
it. Okay, so that is what I wanted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just to clarify, under the definitions, it says a tag means a device as approved by the chief administrative officer and issued by the town or its designate showing that a license fee has been paid for a cat. So there they have tag and license, but it's like similar, it's like a dog license or dog tag, right? Is that what we're
I
talking
don't
about?
see where you're reading from.
It's in
It's a
definitions,
definition.
number N, under the definitions, right near the
Oh,
first.
tag, yes.
Yeah,
And now, currently, there's no license or tags for cats. We don't have a current.
Yes, we do have tags for cats.
We do? Are they mandatory that we?
Yes,
Okay.
under the current bylaw.
Under the current bylaw?
If you own a cat, if it gets picked up and I can't identify who owns it, if nobody contacts me within 3 days, it could be gone up to
Okay.
I remember.
town rescue.
It's treated as a feral cat.
So,
Treated as any cat that I can't identify.
So we already have a license fee or
Yes.
for cats, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, so if they're not given any paper for a tag, except if they're fancier, do we need to have the word license in the definition, or do we just need to say showing that a fee has been paid under N, 2N? See, this is maybe what I wanted. Maybe the word license is not needed
Okay, we can
unless
just say that a
Tag
tag has
fee.
been paid.
that a fee,
Tag fee,
Right.
simple.
Well, I think, yeah, but
that
I
a
think
fee
if
has
you,
been paid.
if you look in your appendix there, all of these are licenses. So you
Yeah,
have,
but
you have licenses to own one cat, you have a license to own a second cat, you have a fancier's license to own more than that. It's all, I think, the word license is appropriate for what we're saying. In addition to that, a tag is issued.
No, well, yes, except that if you have two, it's maybe just semantic, maybe we are
It is.
wasting time now.
It really is, because it's basically the same as
I
the
understand.
dog bylaw that we
Okay.
just approved.
So, let's pass on this one. I think if it's understood by all of you, then it's
I think
okay.
I think the
All
word
right.
license implies permitted,
Yeah.
Right.
permitted
It
animal,
just means that
registered.
for a fancier license, you will be issued a document, for the rest you are not.
Yeah.
But it's still a license.
So, and just to clarify on that, if I want a fourth cat, I just need the one fancier's license, right? I don't pay for a second fancier's license for the fourth cat.
Pay for a tag for each
As
cat.
long as it's under the number of 4, you can have up to 4 cats when you have a cat fancier's license.
So just so I'm clear, I own one cat, I pay regular, the tag fee.
Right.
I own 2 cats, I pay 2 tag fees. I own 3 cats, I need a fancier's license and 3 tag fees.
Yes.
And then if I own 4, I just need the 1 fancier's license and then 4 individual tag fees every year.
Correct,
And the fancier's license we renew every year as well.
that's correct.
Is there a fee for the fancier's license?
There is.
Yes, there is.
$50.
It's a different one.
All right.
It's on the schedule.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, you can scroll down, and if that
Fair enough.
clarifies all that about fancier's licensing cats under 3 months of age, or over 3 months of age. Okay, that's the same thing. Okay, you asked about the fancier's license clause under section 15.
Which section?
There, under item 15, volunteers working with town-approved rescue societies may house up to 5 mature cats on the premises. And then there was a grandfather clause in there, because there are, that I know of now, there were 6, there are now reduced down to 4 people that are working with the Home Safe Animal Shelter and are housing cats for them in their premises. And as long as those cats aren't there for any duration of more than, I think it says
90
in here,
days.
90 days.
That's
90
3 months.
days.
Yeah.
90 days.
then they don't need a fancier's license to do that. But once they're over the 90 days, and there are, I think, 3 of those 4 people now, or 2 of them now that still have cats that they had prior to the cat bylaw even being presented to council originally. So so there's only 2 people now that are allowed to do that
Without a pay
without a
a
fancier's permit.
license.
Right.
Yeah.
That are still fall under the grandfather clause. And that's why it's falling under item 15,
Okay, I get you.
because it is the grandfather clause just for those people,
Okay.
nobody else. Okay? And,
Just while we're on that number, the thought that I had on that is, so we're limiting them to 5, so if they're like cats and they already have 4 of their own, we're only allowing them to help the town with 1 additional cat. if that's the case. Seems maybe just a little low, but we can,
Well, it really isn't, Councillor, because I found out this last week that I've had cats, those cats that I said I caught last month, they went yesterday morning, and they were only in the pound for 2 weeks. So there's no really need for anybody to keep cats for any length more than that. Because, I mean, these people drove down in the snowstorm yesterday to come and pick up these cats, so.
so we.
Unless it was a real bad snowstorm and total whiteout. I mean, I actually phoned them yesterday morning and said, don't bother coming because we have snow down here and I know what the roads are like and it's drifting, you don't have to bother. They phoned me when they were in standoff and said, well, we're here in standoff anyway, so we'll continue on and come down and get these cats for you.
That's a great report. It sounds like we have lots of potential owners for cats. We don't have a huge backlog of cats building up.
No, we don't. As a matter of fact, I probably have more dogs in the pound at one time than I've ever had cats. Okay, the public nuisance, the definition of.
What number are you on?
16D.
16?
Yep. Says a public nuisance includes but not limited to meowing excessively or unnecessarily, defecating or otherwise creating disturbance, whether the cat is on the property of the owner or not.
Under impounding.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
It was a request to define public nuisance, and yet I think D defines what a public nuisance would be.
Well, so you say it would be meowing, defecating, is that
Yeah.
about what?
Yeah, just causing a general disturbance to the neighbors.
You can tell a nuisance cat when you get two of them together that don't like each other.
Or if one's a male and
It's
one's a
a
female.
nightmare to listen to them. You just get going like
Okay.
crazy.
Are you satisfied then with that,
Doesn't
Councillor
matter.
Edmonds?
Are birds classed as wildlife or should they be separate?
I'm sorry, as what?
Should birds,
Are birds classified as wildlife? Yes, they are.
okay, because cats have decimated 20% of the songbirds in southern Alberta.
Well, I've
Say that
heard
again, Councillor?
Cats have decimated songbirds in southern Alberta
Yeah.
by 20%.
Which is,
Hence, we limit the number of cats you're allowed to have.
No, it's easier to shoot the cat and let the bird live.
we shall not,
I didn't
we shall
say
not
that.
propose that.
20%. We need some breeding of songbirds is what we need.
Well, if they eat enough, it's difficult to breed them.
So is there any other question on 16D? Does anybody think there needs
So
to be
you're okay
a
with
further
that one?
definition on that?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, where you've got, meowing is one thing, defecating on the property, I know you don't want them to accumulate a lot of stuff on the property, but
Yeah, if you want to know what that smelled like, you could have come in the pound yesterday morning before I got rid of those.
well, yeah, I know what what that's like. So you're saying if it starts emanating from somebody's property, to the neighbors, then that's starting to create a nuisance.
Yep.
Yeah, but,
It gets really bad when you have cats and that you haven't got spayed. Because then you've got all the toms coming around the neighborhood and they're spraying all over the place. And the whole neighborhood just starts to reek. That's why it's important to get your cats neutered.
Just so you know, I have had a request into the spay and neuter program, and I found out just yesterday when these people came down that they are having a spay and neuter program again on the reserve, and I'm trying to get their coordinator to coordinate with me as to whether or not we can get one done here in Cardston. The problem, it's a bit problematic because on the reserve it's paid by the band and council, where I don't know if the town wants to start putting out money to spay and neuter other people's cats, or people's cats, citizens' cats, which I would make a proposal to the council before I did that anyway, so.
Do you have an
What is
approximate
it-
cost for that?
What is a fee for
The
a
fee
spay
to have
and
a
neuter?
cat
about 100.
Neutered is $110.
110,
To
yeah.
have it spayed can cost anywhere from $180 to $260, depending on whether or not it's impregnated.
Used to be about $20.
Right. Okay.
But the cost to the town or community to host a clinic would be how much?
I don't know yet, that's what I've
Okay.
asked them to get me, is get me some information on it. And that's, when I get that information, that's when I would make a proposal to council as to whether or not we'd even entertain it.
Thank you.
Okay, under 21A, it is a problem to identify the owner of a cat. And that's what this question was, I believe, as to whether or not
What kind of
please
proof?
define what constitutes acceptable proof of ownership in definition.
Yeah.
Well, of the 7 cats that I picked up on last month, 2 of them were claimed by somebody. I said, well, you can come and take a look and see if your cats are here. He walked in the door, and as far as I was concerned, all these cats were feral. He said, well, I'll go in and get my cats. I said, okay, if they're your cats, you should be able to go in and get them. And he did. And as far as I was concerned, that was proof of ownership.
That he could come near the cat
That
and
the
the
cats
cat let him
would-
pick him up.
would quite easily let him pick them up.
Okay, so,
Without throwing a blanket over their head or
right.
using the.
No, but that's an
snare pole or
interesting
whatever.
question, because
I
what is the
understand
proof
that,
of
but
it?
And in some cases, I've had to do that with dogs too. I'd say, because a dog more readily will respond to its name than a cat will. So I'd say, okay, what's your dog's name? And I'd go into the pound and call the name and see if the dog kind of perks up type thing. You know, it's hard to prove, but in the 7 years I've been doing this, I've only had one person ever try to tell me that I gave their dog to somebody else, because I found out through the RCMP that it wasn't, I gave it to the right person, so it wasn't.
Okay, so the proof would be then up to you to decide, more or less.
Yeah.
That is something, maybe
It's pretty easy
to
to
the
tell.
discretion, maybe it should be added to the discretion of the bylaw officer, because if it is your discretion, I totally understand that, but if they have to come with a piece of paper or picture or whatever, it's a different story.
Well, lots of people have pictures of their cats, I mean.
Right.
I
I mean, it could be proof by picture, but it could also be simply at your own discretion. You can use that discretion yourself. Councillor
Just
Creed?
a question, since we're kind of talking about owners and who owns the cats, I had a little problem there when you go back to the definition of owner right back in two, basically saying that a cat could have more than one owner, and that's a little problematic. Also, where it says that a cat appears to reside temporarily or permanently. I mean, feral cats, they can be all over. I mean, I've had cats crossing my property, and we basically don't touch them. You know, they're and really haven't really been a problem. But they come and go. We live down near the creek, so it's. But you might say that they appear to live on our property, but as far as we're concerned, they're like the deer. They come and
However,
go.
if I were to set up traps on your property at your request, and I caught those cats and nobody claimed them, I would assume that they're not your cats either.
Okay, yeah. So, anyway, I just, like I say, it's just.
No, I think the definition of, the multi-definition of owner kind of makes sense. Maybe you want to kind of touch on that as to why you feel it necessary to have that multi-definition of what an owner of a cat is, because it's not specifically if the cat is on your property and truly your cat. If it is
I think
being
we're all
handled by somebody else, it could also be that they are the one who looks after the cat and therefore should have the responsibility, right?
With the exception of house cats, I think we're all aware that most people that own a cat in town do not keep it tied up on their property.
You can't.
Right.
I mean, well, you can.
Well,
But rarely,
I
rarely
would,
so.
I would say 99% of the people don't.
yeah.
Right,
I mean, it's almost an impractical thing to do.
It is.
However, if your cat is causing a problem with somebody, with your neighbor's cat, or your cat's in heat, then you're just looking for problems if you put your cat outside. Well,
right.
she's in heat.
Maybe
Councillor Creed?
under the definition of owner, then you should put anyone that's feeding a cat on a regular basis becomes an owner. I would address Councillor Edmonds' concern that way, that if they're feeding them on a regular basis, they are an owner.
But how would
It
you
becomes
do that?
difficult to prove.
Yeah, well,
How would you
it
do
does,
that?
but,
I could
If
prove
you
you
cannot
fed it
prove
just now.
it, you know,
I mean, like I say, the cat appearing to reside on the property is a little sketchy there too.
Right, no,
Well, without
It's-
mentioning any names, I've actually had a case over on the East Hill where somebody complained about the number of cats that were residing next door to them. So I approached those people, they said they're not our cats.
Yeah.
I said, okay, if they're not your cats, why are they being fed outside? It's not us feeding them. So then I approached the person that is feeding, they said, well, what do you want us to do, just let them die? I said, no, I would suggest we catch them and farm them out either to a farm where they need to be, or give them to an adoption agency, an animal rescue place that will adopt them out.
Yeah.
I mean, some feral cats, it depends on how old they are when they're feral as to whether or not you can tame them down to the fact that you can use them as a house cat compared to the older ones. Once they're over a year old, it's almost impossible to. I mean, the 4 that left here on Monday, I was told that they would very likely go to a farm and get somebody's farm. I said,
yeah, which is
that's fine with me. I've
I think all 7 of them done.
done what I could to save them from being destroyed. So,
Good.
okay, the next item, wildcat. You want a definition, feral cat is a wildcat.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that-
okay, so we know
Pretty
what that is.
straightforward. And we also had something in there about, it was a little confusing about the owner of the cat, whether it's the cat that the person owns or the cat that got bitten by a feral cat.
Can you
So
tell us where that was?
So we took the cat clause right out of there and said that it was, where is it? I think that was in 24 or 25. Oh, disease control, yes, under 25. And it was 25C. It says any cat that is bitten by a feral cat, it used to say wild animal, but it doesn't matter if it's bitten by any other animal, and I would suggest we leave wild animal in there because a feral cat is a wild animal.
Mhm.
Or is suspected of being bitten by any animal that is suspected to have rabies, the owner of the cat, the bitten cat, the cat that has been bitten by the animal, shall forthwith contact the regional veterinarian, and this person shall deal with the incident. That's where we had to clear that one up. So it's the cat that gets bitten that could be your house cat.
Right,
It's your responsibility to make sure that gets reported to the regional veterinarian regarding the fact that your cat might have rabies or been
yeah,
bitten
well, I
by
appreciate that. It
an
just
animal.
was the way it was written was not clear.
You asked about the order of euthanization. Where's euthanization?
23?
It's now says in there, provided that the chief administration officer or designate is satisfied that the cat constitutes a continuous danger to persons or domestic animals and cannot be rehabilitated. But as I demonstrated this last week, most of these cats can be gone to a farm or someplace and they can use them to keep mice down on their barns and ranches.
Yeah, I was, well, under 23, I was going to suggest that if a cat is suffering from a disease that can't be effectively
Yeah.
cured, that would be a
Cause for.
cause for euthanasia.
Or if it's a cat that can't be identified, the owner can't be identified, is the town gonna foot the bill to say the cat has parvo or something like that? That it's, is the town gonna pay for that, or would they rather the cat was euthanized?
Well, that's what I'm saying, if it's a,
Yeah,
diseased
it's a
cat,
commu-
then.
Parvo is a communicable disease,
Mhm.
so are we gonna try to save that cat, or are we gonna euthanize it? That would be the council's call, not mine.
Yeah, well, I don't know if, I'm not familiar.
I
You know,
haven't had
dogs
any
get-
yet that way.
Cats get parvo, I don't know.
Oh,
Dogs
yes,
get it,
they
But
do.
anyway, so,
It's not.
and is it treatable or curable or? I
It
don't know.
it is curable to a degree, it depends on how bad they
Mhm.
have it.
Yeah.
I have, as I mentioned, regarding the dog bylaw, there was one dog that had to be put down because it had parvo so bad, the vet just couldn't.
Yeah.
He says it was gonna cost a couple $100 to
Mhm.
save a dog that nobody claimed anyway, so.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest that, if the cat is, suffering from a disease, that would be a cause for
Yeah.
euthanizing the cat.
Along those lines, in our current policy, do the town pays for this, to euthanize the cat?
If I pick up any animal, whether it's a dog, cat, mouse, not mouse,
Whatever.
a hawk or some endangered, like a raccoon or something like that, it's the responsibility, if I pick them up, if I trap them, I'm responsible to make sure that they get the veterinary care that they need to put them back in the wild. Even the wild, like I say.
So
even
if they need
wild.
shots or healing, the town pays for all that?
Well, within reason. yes. That's why I say that if nobody's gonna claim that animal, I mean, if we just know it needs shots for something other than distemper, or, because distemper is not, you don't have shots for distemper, but for parvo, then are we gonna put the bill, or are we gonna euthanize the animal?
What's the cost of to euthanize a cat?
It's a cat, it would be under $45. Where in dogs, it's more because it depends on the size of the dog.
Sure, yeah.
The weight of the dog, so. And I say that tongue in cheek because I've never had to have a cat euthanized by the vet, so I don't know. Okay, so that covers the euthanized. Schedule A, I think the review of, there was some question about the fines or the persons or people,
Yeah.
cats. Well, all fines go to a person, because they are responsible for their pets.
Yeah.
So whether it's a person or it says that, failed to license a cat, well, of course, the fine goes to the
That's a
person.
person.
Injured another cat or domestic animal, well, again, if you're gonna claim the cat is yours, then you're gonna have to pay the bill to have that.
No, but injure, that is under 8F, is a cat that injures other cats. If you look at
Oh, I
back,
see what you mean, okay, other
that's a
cats.
cat that
Or
injures
injures a
other
person.
cat. You see, so
So
that's
you
not
think
a
that
person.
if it injures a person, but a person could get injured by a cat just by getting clawed. I mean, I've been clawed by cats several times.
Yeah, but that again is a cat, it's just a matter of,
Get away with chainmail gloves.
no, it
I've
just,
got some pretty heavy gloves.
it's not that
Bite
those,
through.
it's not that those are questionable, it's that 8C represent, 3 represents a person, 8C represents a person. 9B is a person, 9C is a person, 9E, same story. But 8F and 8G are really issues created by cats, that's all. I just wondered
Yeah.
if we could kind of,
Maybe we need a
So-
little level for
So
what
do you
people
think, do
do.
you think the fine should be more for a person?
no, I just mean, can we group all what's with a person and group all what's caused by a cat? So that it's easier.
That would be smart. One question related to that, if
It's not a
person
fees fine.
injures a cat, and someone's like, oh my goodness, my neighbor just kicked my cat, is that in the criminal code or is that in the cat bylaw?
No, but here,
Well, the town
8F,
of Cardston, if we pass this bylaw, would be in no town bylaw.
No, right, that's what I'm saying, like, is it here,
Yeah,
like,
it's a
if a
cat
person
doesn't
injures a
count.
cat,
Not a person.
do we have that
Well, if
here?
a person, no,
If a person injured.
yeah, that's under the federal law.
That's a thing, the
That's under the
RCMP does a big
Yeah, that's
criminal
under the humane
investigation.
act.
I mean, if you as council are comfortable the way it is, I'm fine too.
No, I agree, I like that, having designation of things that the people do, like setting a cat out of a trap or provoking a cat, that should all be in its own designation. People crimes regarding cats.
Sure, at the end, the owner
Versus
has
So
cat.
to
we're talking
pay.
about 9B down?
No, 8F and 8G. If you took those two and put them at the end, under 25A,
Yeah, but
it's just
8F
move them.
refers to a cat injuring
Yeah,
another, or
cat.
hurting another cat.
What?
8F is.
8F is a cat hurting another cat.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When the rest speaks of the person doing the injury, those two items, 8F and 8G, talk about a cat provoking an injury, not a person. If I read it well according to what you have in your document.
I don't know if I quite understand what you're referring to.
It's
I know
just
what you're
a,
referring to, but
yeah, it's just a couple of these are like a human is guilty of the crime, and then others are a cat is guilty of the crime. Like upsetting a garbage receptacle.
Owner,
In this case, we're talking about when a cat does that, not when a human goes and kicks one over. Some of these, it's hard to tell. Are we talking about the human, or are we talking about the cat?
okay, so let's
Where's
just
this
go through section
definition
B
come
here.
from?
Let's just go through level B offenses just really quickly here.
Yeah.
Not just put a P or a C for a person or a cat.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, failed to license a cat, that's a person.
P.
Person.
Person.
Accumulate defecation
Cat.
P.
on owner's
No, no,
property.
That's a cat.
That's a cat. Well, who's gonna go around to somebody's property and check to see if there's too much poop there?
If your
No, that's a
neighbor
person.
started having that ammonia smell drifting into your window on a warm summer afternoon, you can bet you're gonna phone me and say, come over here and find out what the problem is for me.
No,
Gotcha.
to me, that's a person.
That's a person.
My cat
problem.
buries
To me,
it.
it's a- Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Most cats do.
Injure other cats or domestic animals,
That's a
that's
cat.
a C. Okay? So injure a person is a
that's a
C.
C.
Provide false information is a
P.
P. Release cat,
P.
P. Release cat from private
P.
trap, P. Provoke a cat is P.
P.
And fail to confine contagious cat is P.
Do
So
you see
we'll
what I'm
just
trying to
separate
say?
those.
Well, you
Yeah.
have the same problem in the other levels as well, like failure to wear
Well, I'll-
license is a P,
If you
but
want to go through the
causing
same
damage
ones,
is
we
a
can.
C.
If you want to go through those the same way, we can right now.
Okay.
Let's
I'll
do
go
it,
for
let's do level
Fail,
A.
fail to wear a license, well, you can't
P.
blame the cat, that's
It's
the
a
person.
P.
Sure.
Running at
Running at
large,
large,
that's a,
C.
but it's also the cause of a person.
yeah, it is the person, because it's the person's left and run at large.
There's a person that opened the door, right?
Well, I don't know, cats are pretty catty. They-
But, I mean, at the end of the day, the people are responsible for all these things. I think we're
Well-
just saying, we're not gonna penalize a
Yeah.
person for running at large. It was the cat that was running
Mhm.
in the
No,
definition.
it's just a matter of clarity.
Sure.
to Separate human behavior from the cat behavior, that was all.
Okay, then,
So what it
and in
is.
the top one there, in offenses A, the only two that I would think would be, or the three that would be P is, fail to wear a license, fail to remove defecation, and cat left without ventilation.
Yeah,
Agree?
exactly.
Yeah,
Okay. And then down in level C, interference
With what?
With the officer, bylaws?
with my, performing my duties.
Yeah, maybe put that, just for.
I think all those are.
I know it's, I know it's in
It's
9A.
just a short
Right.
definition of.
Yeah.
of-
All those
Does that
are
happen
person.
very often, Stuart?
Not with the cat, as with the dog.
With the dog, though?
Yep,
Yeah,
because people are
Okay.
very protective of the dogs.
I think it just would tidy up the schedule, that's all.
Remove apprehended cat would be a P.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Fail to confine or report cat
P.
with rabies would be P.
all those are
Ooh.
P,
So those are all P. So there's just
yeah,
Mhm.
4 or 5 that'll be
Just-
classified as cat problems, and the other ones
yeah.
We've
are
got-
people problems.
Why would a person want to have a cat with rabies not reported?
Well,
Because some don't
make
realize the
sense.
importance of doing it.
It's the same reason they have dogs with distemper or parvo and not reported.
Okay.
because they don't care enough about the animal to do anything about
The
it.
dog, the cat or the dog should be removed at
I
that
mean,
point in time.
you and I both grew up in the age when your cat or your dog had puppies, and you had no way of getting rid of them, you disposed of them yourself, right?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Council, is there any more question for Lloyd regarding this bylaw? We have cleaned up quite a
It's pretty
few,
good.
quite a few items, and as you could see, a lot has been drafted from the
I guess-
same process that we did with the
I got
dogs.
a couple of questions here.
Go
When you're
ahead.
saying first offense, that's the first reported offense. That cat may have caused damage, may have upset waste receptacles a few times before the neighbor got ticked off enough to report it, right?
That's
Well,
right.
Very
But
often,
upon-
that's the way it is.
First offense.
Did that first offense after it's finally reported and apprehended, and you talk to the people, you're gonna issue them the ticket right off the bat. There's no warning.
That's right.
Okay.
I have a couple, just,
Councillor Peavoy?
again, questions going back to the background on this. In your opinion, and just to compare dogs to cats for a second, how many, like percentage in town, how many dogs that are licensed to dogs that are not, would you say there are? Is it like
In
50/50 in
Cardston
Cardston? 80/20?
In the community of Cardston proper,
Right.
I would say we probably have 90% of the dogs that are owned are licensed.
And then cats, in contrast,
We have maybe 10-15%
that are licensed.
that are licensed.
Yeah, so here's just kind of my thinking along this line. It seems like if we go this route, and we have gone this route, this is just adjusting our current bylaw, but there's potential here that we're penalizing the law-abiding tag-holding cat owners. Because the feral the ones that aren't tagged, that's not my cat. You know, and so I would never have to pay a fine
with cats as
if
I
I
do with
never
dogs.
licensed my cat.
If I caught your cat and it was in one of my traps and it had a license on it, I'd look up who owns the cat. I'd say, hey, I got your cat.
Come get it.
Either come get it or I'll drop it off at your house or whatever.
But the potential is if
But
that
if it
cat was in
happens several
mischief,
times-
they're getting fined.
Yeah.
Whereas if that cat didn't have a tag,
But then you lose your cat.
Yeah.
But by the sounds of what he's saying, cats are a dime a dozen.
well, no, I'm just saying as a, like, you know, what I hate to do is create a bylaw that penalizes law-abiding citizens just trying to, you know, that 10% who's trying their darndest, they're the ones most likely to pay fines on this thing.
Okay.
Well,
Hold on a
that
second.
only stands to reason. Because that's, how do you identify the cat owner if you don't know and they don't admit it? You just get rid of the cat.
Yeah.
Take it away.
But-
If they, hang on a second, Mayor, if they reject that stiff enough, then you're gonna know that that's their cat.
Like if I were to pick up Councillor Barnes' cat tomorrow, I don't know what his cat looks like. If he doesn't phone me in 3 days, this cat's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeff, you wanted
Yeah,
to say something?
This is always a bit of an interesting discussion. We had it with the dog bylaw, that bylaws penalize the abiding owners.
They don't.
But they're not abiding owners if they're in contravention of the bylaw.
Exactly right.
Okay.
But by definition,
Yeah.
they're no longer and I get what you're saying though, Councillor, don't get me wrong. I guess the underlying assumption is there's enough attachment to the animal that one would not just want to let it be given away.
Yeah.
To
And do the
avoid
right thing.
the fine. That
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Otherwise, I guess we can argue the philosophy that whether it's a pet or not as to whether you care if it's there one day and gone the next.
I mean,
If I could just
any-
touch a minute on these 7 cats that I caught. The guy came in and told me only 2 of those cats were his. The next day I caught another cat in the same location. And his daughter stopped me and said, that's my cat. I says, you have your father come to the pound and identify that cat as yours and you can get it back, as long as you're licensed.
They were kittens though, right?
No, this was a cat, a full-grown cat.
Full-grown cats. so-
But he had told me the day before that he only owned 2 cats. So had he claimed that 3rd cat, he would have to license all 3 of them, plus get a
Fancier's license, yeah.
He never came and claimed the cat.
Yeah, it's
was really
unfortunate.
I mean,
Two cats.
cats really are a bigger problem than dogs are now in Cardston
Yeah.
compared to 7 or 8 years ago.
All right, any more questions? Thank you for all your input.
Oh, Councillor Creed.
Yeah, and this just is maybe a technical question, but, because I'd asked you if they were, we had the licensed cats now, and you said we do. When we changed the dog bylaw and some of the other bylaws, at the end it says this bylaw repeals, such other bylaw, and I didn't see that on this bylaw, so what do we have in place right now? What bylaw are we
Did you put the repeal
changing?
in there?
I didn't see at the end of the bylaw, I didn't see anything.
There is a current cat bylaw, I guarantee you.
Is this just an amendment of the current one?
We'll just have to repeal
Yeah,
the
it-
previous
right.
one.
Well, there is a grandfather clause
Well,
in there.
there is,
for
but
some.
I'm just saying that,
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
when we update a bylaw, at the end of the bylaw, there
Yeah.
it says repeals this existing
Good.
No,
bylaw.
you're absolutely correct. There
Yeah.
is no mention of that.
Maybe that just needs to be added then.
I'm writing it right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if there is another bylaw that we're
Yeah.
changing, or
Yeah, we
we're
will
superseding.
repeal the previous
Good
bylaw.
catch. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more input? Because if not, this will be
I got
drafted.
one more silly question.
It's the numbers of cats that was still an issue for you.
I'm not worried about that. No, I'm okay.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
okay. I was just kind of being the devil's advocate out there.
That's all right.
But anyways, Lloyd, do you have any idea how to get some of these cat owners to license their cats without,
Trapping them all?
yeah, I mean, you probably have an idea of which cats are owned by who, but you just haven't had the teeth in the bylaw yet to go after them. Is that a fair assumption?
No, it's not.
Okay,
Because if I see a cat running across the street, I don't know where it's running from or to,
right.
unless I follow it. And
Right.
I'm not about to start following cats.
Other things to do.
And to be predatory.
It's bad enough that I happen to know most of the dogs in town and they know me.
Well, I just wondered, how do we appeal to owners in town? There's got to be some kind of a campaign to get out there, because if you're thinking
Do
that
you love your pet?
85%,
House?
yeah, you're thinking 85% of the cat owners aren't licensed to cat, they're not taking that responsibility, then how do we appeal to them?
Could it be possible to do a little bit of a campaign via the Channel 32 or the newspaper?
Newspaper and Facebook
or,
and
possibly
town
when we
website?
do the year in review that goes with the taxes, maybe we could put a little something there regarding
Yeah,
the need for licensing. Possibly that is one place we could do it.
you got to do something. 'Cause it's
And
just-
that would have the maximum distribution possible, because every,
Let me ask this, the tags we provide, that comes in with the licensing fee, right? You pay your $15, we give you a $1 tag, $1 tag, right? I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be possible, because I know a lot of people that don't tag their cats, it's because it's cost prohibitive. That little $15 is enough to keep them out
Well,
of there.
it's been $5. I think this is an increase, is what you're saying, Lloyd? Because
Yes,
isn't
it
it
is an
current,
increase,
isn't it currently $5 for a cat tag?
yes.
For a
If they're spayed or neutered.
or neutered?
If they're not, then it's $10.
Okay, so
20? Sorry, 20.
So is that going to be increased for,
Yeah, it's 35 now. It's 35. So I'm just wondering if maybe in the first year, maybe this is, a little backhanded here, but the first year, the town will pay your licensing fee. Just come down, we'll give you a tag. It costs us $1, but now we've got you. And next year, 12 months later, we're gonna know, hey, renew your license. $15 in that second year paid for that $1 tag.
My
If that's
cat
something
just died.
council wants to approve of, I'd be glad to.
I'm sorry,
I said, if that's something that this council wants to approve, I'd be glad to do it.
I mean, there's a lot of people I'm sure that would like to be legally compliant.
I can tell you
But
now
they don't
that
want to
there
pay
are less
15 bucks.
cats licensed in Cardston than there were 5 years ago.
Is that because the fee went up, or people just don't
the
care?
fee,
Didn't go
the
up from
fees,
$5.
it's only proposed, it's still only $5 right now,
Okay.
okay? So $5 is not gonna hurt somebody now.
2015 is $5.
It's gonna go up the next year after this bylaw is approved.
2015 is $5.
If you cat is spayed or neutered, yes.
Yeah. But in this, you're
I mean-
proposing to raise that to $15, right?
I mean, it's
I think it's a little.
it's
too
$1.10
much,
a month. You love your pet, you can spend $1.10 a month.
You pay that much for food for it, I'll guarantee you.
Come on, I think there is a little bit of wisdom there. If you love your pet, you want to have a pet, there is a cost attached to a pet. And if you're the one who enjoy the companionship of the pet,
but let's speak in
It's-
camera on this thing.
it's worth something.
Camera session.
I think
To be
$1.10 per month is not prohibitive. I think anyone who wants a pet, who has to pay $1.10 to abide by a bylaw, is pretty cheap, in my view. Any other comments?
Well, let's get on to something important.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much, Lloyd. I think you've done a great job with that.
We'll make those changes and we'll get it to you for your next council meeting.
Yeah, and next council meeting, I think we should be able to
The first reading?
do that. I think if you have any other point that you really feel we missed today, could you please write them and send them to Lloyd and send a copy to each one of us so we will know what you're proposing. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. Tyler, do you want to help us with the FOIP and social media presentations? I think it might be, you're going to do it here?
Yeah, we have a PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lloyd.
That's if everything wants to work, because today it doesn't seem to be the case for anything, but,
It's just two.
Is it the battery?
no.
Well, we had that issue.
It's far
all the
deeper
time.
than battery.
We won't ask.
Chronic, we're gonna need a ladder.
Long stick.
Yeah, that's
Well, if it
Well, if I could
doesn't,
reach it.
if it doesn't work, we have it on paper, so maybe you can go through it on a paper.
Sure, I don't have a copy of it, but
Here.
Okay, maybe let's not waste too much time with that. You have it quite well defined there, and maybe we can get it going that way, unless,
Get started.
I just think we're gonna drop it unless it's scans.
yeah.
So here today, we're going to talk about FOIP, which is the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And we're going to also talk about the social media
Yeah,
in the same light.
yeah. Last week, I took a couple days and I read through the FOIP Act, which was surprisingly interesting, considering it's a FOIP Act.
I would say.
What I prepared is quite broad, it's quite general. The problem with trying to present something on the FOIP Act is in order to apply it, you need to have like a specific email or notebook or something to apply the act to, which I don't have, so it's all very broad. The basic principles of FOIP, the first one, is it provides the public with the right to access information in the possession of public bodies. It also establishes the guidelines and procedures for requesting these records. The second major pillar of FOIP is it provides individuals with privacy protection for the personal information, as well as establishes the limits on how personal information may be used. And one of the other things that the FOIP Act does is it establishes the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner, which hears complaints under the Act. So going back to the first main pillar of FOIP, access to information, the main principle of FOIP is that it establishes what information cannot be released rather than what information can be released. So public records then are by default to be released to the public unless they fall under one of the exempted categories in the Act. So this establishes the core principle of FOIP as transparency. Only information which is of a very specific nature should be withheld or redacted. So having to have access through FOIP then is supposed to be a last resort. Some of the exemptions under the FOIP Act are public records must be withheld or redacted if they contain information harmful to the following. And these are some of the main ones, the council, that you'd have to deal with. There's a few other ones that you probably wouldn't come across, so I kind of narrowed it down here. So business or economic interests, information containing personal privacy, individual or public safety, law enforcement, intergovernmental relations, or confidential and privileged information. But there's always an exemption to the exemptions under the Act. If a record contains information that is clearly in the public interest, it must be released without delay. The Act doesn't define what clearly in the public interest means, so it's quite vague in that regard.
Can you, sorry,
Go ahead.
can you expound on that a little bit? Like, so you're saying, if it's clearly in the if it's determined that it is clearly in the public interest, we might release something without delay, without going through and blacking out the privacy information?
Yes, I'm not sure about.
I mean, I can't think of an example of when that would be necessary.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not either.
Okay.
Maybe perhaps during emergencies,
Emergencies.
disasters, this sort of stuff.
Okay.
Because that's clearly in the public interest.
Sure.
And I think any court would find that. So the second pillar of the FOIP Act is protection of privacy. The main principle here is that personal information cannot be collected by a municipality unless it's authorized to do so by a provincial or federal law, or if the information is necessary for operating one of its programs or activities. So in most cases, personal information can only be collected directly from the individual, and he or she must be informed of what the information will be used for. Again, this is general. There are specific cases where it differs, but on the whole, this is usually a good principle to sort of look at the Act.
But we can see it applicable with the taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And property information and people attached to that property. We
Yeah.
can see that.
Like I said at the start, this is very general, and if you
Right.
really want the nitty-gritty details of the FOIP
Yeah.
Act, you can read the Act, or there's plenty of courses and workshops on that. Personal information may be only used for the purpose that it was collected in the first place, or a consistent purpose, or if the individual has consented to it being used otherwise. So protection of privacy for elected officials, again, it's pretty general advice, but elected officials have a responsibility to protect the privacy of personal information they receive as they carry out their duties.
Tyler?
Sorry.
Just wanted to back up a little bit. When we come to elected officials, there was a note back 2 or 3 pages back that said that
Yeah.
elected officials have no special.
Oh, sorry, this glance over that one?
Yeah, we didn't go through that one.
Oh,
but-
sorry,
but
yeah.
I'm just
my
saying
bad.
that elected officials, by very virtue of the fact that they are elected official, doesn't mean that they have special privileges to go gather that information.
Not if you're using the
Under
FOIP
FOIP.
Act. No,
Yeah.
under FOIP, you're treated just the same
We're
as
we're
Joe.
treated just the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that people need to understand,
Yeah.
that we don't have privy to personal information because of the fact that we are elected officials.
Yeah, I'll backtrack back to that slide. I must have glanced over that. Sorry. So back to the first pillar, the access to information. As elected officials, you don't have any special right of access to information under the FOIP Act. Elected officials are treated no different than anybody else. That said, in the MGA, it does provide councillors with the right to access specific information that is necessary to carry out your duties as councillors and as a council. And you have very 2 specific obligations under the FOIP Act. One is to designate a FOIP head by bylaw.
And Tyler, who is that currently?
It's
Jeff.
just
Jeff?
Yeah,
designated CEO.
Yeah. And the second is to adopt a fee schedule for processing FOIP requests.
Do we have that in place?
Yes, we've had one recently, so yeah.
What does it cost for somebody to come and request that
I
information?
don't recall.
Is it $10 or $15 fee or something like that?
Does that sound right?
For tax information, it's 10.
Yeah.
Certificates, that was 25. As far as FOIA
Yeah.
things go, it may be between 50.
Thank you.
All right, so privacy protection for elected officials. You obviously come across information that's private, confidential, And as councillors, you have a responsibility to keep that information private and confidential. Some potential FOIP issues that councillors may come across during their duties are information about businesses, law enforcement matters, intergovernmental affairs, as well as confidential information about employee hiring and evaluation, information regarding the awarding of contracts or other benefits. Councillors can be sanctioned for the unauthorized disclosure of confidential information acquired during their duties as elected officials.
And to say, just as a note here, I think that's why it's so important when Jeff passes out information to us in camera and we have to go through this to look it through, but at the end of that session, we've got to give that back to him because it's better for us not to have that information in our briefcase, in case somebody finds that, right?
Yeah.
And so that way we are accountable, and he keeps that information private and it's confidential and it's not out there for the public view.
And segueing from that into in-camera sessions more generally, this is the last part of my FOIP presentation here. Council obviously may go on camera if the item of discussion fits within one of the exemptions to disclosure found in the FOIP Act. The main exemptions are the following: business or economic interest, personal privacy, individual or public safety, law enforcement, the same stuff that I've harped on before. Which leads to the conclusion that in-camera sessions are not for discussing awkward or embarrassing items. They are specifically for ensuring you as council stays compliant with the FOIP Act. That's the purpose
Right.
of in-camera sessions.
And that makes total sense.
Yeah.
If it's embarrassing, well, what to do in public is the way the public will appreciate it, I'm sure.
So that's the end of my FOIP presentation.
Thank you.
Um,
You're going to talk about the social media?
Yeah, I'll bring up the social media. I think I'll close out with that. Oh.
Is that in here too? Is that in-
Yeah, it is
Should
just
just be next there.
just about 4 slides.
Oh, here we are, social media for elected officials.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Gotcha.
So we also made a presentation, obviously, about social media. And throughout my internship, I've been in a lot of workshops and classes and speakers talking about social media. And they've all been beneficial, they've been useful, but I found that they specifically limit the discussion to corporate uses of social media.
Meaning administrative?
Meaning like how we as a town use social media. We have our Facebook page, we have our Twitter page, and they focus on how we use those. And what I found lacking in a lot of those discussions is they don't fit that into the broader way that social media sort of plays out in the world. So I kind of wanted to do a bit of both with this one. So social media is obviously a powerful tool. One example that I personally find great about social media is things like TED Talks.
Oh, they're awesome.
They're fantastic, yeah. So some forms of social media, specifically YouTube, has been sort of transitioning us away from written text as a source of knowledge. So like books and whatnot. And I heard one commentator say that YouTube may be the most important innovation in education since the Gutenberg Press made text widely available and to the general population. And just as an example, 2,500 TED Talk video lectures have been viewed collectively over 250 million times. That's an incredible amount of knowledge and ideas being transferred. Another example recently, a couple years ago, was the Arab Spring. Social media was used to organize collective activism and protests against despotic governments in the Middle East. And they used social media specifically to circumvent state-owned and operated media channels. Social media use more than doubled in Arab countries during protests. It was a fantastic tool for people to express their views and to organize collectively without intrusion, I suppose. And one from a couple years ago, the first images from the terrible 2013 chemical weapons attacks in Syria. The first images were recorded and released through amateur footage uploaded to YouTube, rather than through traditional media sources and professional war photographers. But tools, if social media is a tool, and I think it's kind of more than a tool, but if we talk about social media as a tool, tools can be used for good things and for bad things. You know, I can build a house with a tool, with a hammer, but I can also tear one down with a hammer. So a recent example going on now with the news out of Iraq with ISIS. ISIS uses all of the major social media platforms to spread its message and recruit members. They've developed their own apps, their own web browsers. So they obviously have a pretty good grasp on the power of social media, although not for a good use, right? Malcolm Gladwell, who writes, he's a pretty well-respected, famous author. He writes sort of cultural books. His hypothesis is that social media makes it easier for individuals to express themselves, but it also makes it harder for their expression to have an impact. So for example, when I go on Twitter and I tweet about politics or whatnot, it's nice that I can express my views and a lot of people can see it, but there's so many other people also doing the exact same thing. So what we find is that people who are generally well-respected and popular outside of social media are the ones that we gravitate towards on social media. And going with that, there's a term, slacktivism, which is that social networks, like Facebook, Twitter, whatnot, are effective at increasing participation in activism, but it does so by lowering the amount of sacrifice that activism has traditionally required. So rather than something that I devote my life, all my time, money, and effort towards, I can just go on Facebook and press like and share, and that's sort of seen as activism nowadays. And a good example of that is COUNCILLORS 2012. If you remember that, it was a couple of years ago, and it was a campaign to end child soldiers in Uganda. And there was one main video that was released, and it was shared millions of times, but nothing really came about from that. So some perspective, the power and dangers of social media are not universal. They're sort of relative to the scale of participation. So social media isn't, by its nature, scary or powerful. It's what people do with it and how many people are involved that make it scary, powerful, good, great, whatever. So as a small community in southern Alberta, what is at stake when we use social media is fairly small in the grand scheme of things. We're fairly isolated from the life and death struggles that play over social media each day. That said, it's obviously an incredibly useful tool for us to communicate and inform residents.
Just a comment.
Yeah,
I
sure.
was thinking, Tyler, it's interesting how over in Korea, they jammed the internet so that people couldn't use the internet unless it was screened and it was something that they felt was promoting their culture. But yet, when we see things like ISIS and everything like that, it's out there and it's going there, but yet nobody's prepared to make that kind of control with that type of thing. So it's obvious to me that they're selective, and people who are in control are selective of what they will censor and hold back. And maybe there's just not the political will to. These things can be stopped and nipped in the bud if there was somebody willing to block those negative things coming onto the airways, right? But it takes a political will. Good or bad that Korea did what they did, they showed that they could. And so somebody could do that with all this problem with the terrorism that's out there, but so far nobody's taken that bull by the horns.
You're talking about laws akin to like the 1800s, where it was a possibility to legally go in and destroy a printing press that was causing up some rebellion and some social unrest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you'll see with North Korea or China is they actually have control of the internet.
Exactly.
Whereas, most other places aside don't control the internet. So it's very tough to, like Twitter, for example, deletes accounts and whatnot. But it's tough to have any kind of broad control over the internet.
Yeah.
So some differences between social and traditional media. The main difference is that in social media, the audience is no longer a passive consumer of information, but they're an active contributor to the discussion. Dinner time conversations about events now take place on social media, where dozens of people in dozens of places come together on a Facebook post. Disgruntled people online are also disgruntled people offline. So the only difference is that when it's online, you can hear what they say, see what they say, and you have a chance to respond to it. So just because you couldn't see it before social media didn't mean that it wasn't there. It's just now you have a chance to see it, is the main difference in that regard. So as elected officials, while you're on council, there's no separating you as an individual from your role as an elected official, and this obviously extends to social media as well. So my advice is to use your experience with traditional media as a compass to navigate your way through social media. So make sure your Facebook posts read like a transcript from a news interview, and make sure tweets read like a favorable quote in the paper. When you're on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, make sure what you're posting is akin to what you'd be saying at a council meeting, for example. Sort of assume that every resident is watching and every news outlet is there covering every post you make. So some parting advice. Marshall McLuhan famously described our technological society and hyper-connected world as the global village. So try not to be the village either. That is my advice.
I like that.
Yeah, that's my presentation.
Thanks very much, Tyler. It's really in a nutshell, you did a great job
Thanks.
presenting those difficult topics. Any questions for Tyler? Councillor Peavoy?
So, yeah,
Oh,
Tyler, so this information was put together based on, different classes or sessions that you've attended?
The stuff from FOIP, I basically read through FOIP last week, and I read through some of the stuff that Service Alberta has on FOIP and kind of compiled it. The stuff on social media was just basically me writing an essay in a PowerPoint.
Right.
form.
So when you're, and I appreciate the advice you're trying to give, especially for elected officials.
Yeah.
But especially in small towns, elected officials wear many hats, right? So
Yeah.
they, for instance, I have roles in the Chamber of Commerce that have nothing to do with, my
Yeah.
duties here. And, I have religious callings, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That, my attention's very divided into many, many different things.
Yeah.
So when you're saying, hey, don't say anything on your social media that you wouldn't say as an elected official, I just find that hard to reconcile because, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Maybe I'm
absolutely.
leaving a post to my friends from, a church class that I teach or something.
Yeah. A good sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish what you're saying, then I'll make my comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say that stuff that you may post on social media in a sort of more private, as friends kind of thing, if other people see it, and maybe you as your council member, separating you as Bill from you as Councillor Peavoy might be difficult for them.
And
It's more general advice, right? It's not gospel or anything.
I think there's wisdom in what you say, because very often in those non-public kind of places, people will still refer to me as Mayor Kronen. And I chuckle a little because I thought, okay, I'm not in such a definite public place. But people view us still by our title. is very interesting. And I suppose that's what it is. I went once to an AUMA conference where they said, you're a mayor 24/7, you're a councillor 24/7. And I thought, wow, that's a mandate.
There was a neat example of this, Councillor Peavoy, and now I'm forgetting the mayor. It was all over the news about 2 days ago.
Chris Spearman.
Yeah, that's right.
Who was it?
Yeah, Lethbridge.
Spearman.
It was Chris Spearman from Lethbridge. He took a picture of something he thought was funny when he was in Banff, and he just posted it on his Twitter feed. And there was an incredible uproar because the people said it's inappropriate for a mayor to post that. He wasn't necessarily posting it as Mayor Spearman. But it was on national news that the
And he
mayor of
apologized
Lethbridge.
publicly for it.
Yeah, and it wasn't actually,
It was nothing.
it wasn't overly offensive. I mean, I understand why the general public took exception, because Mayor Spearman posted this and it wasn't appropriate as the mayor. We've had this discussion a lot. I believe, Councillor Peavoy, that you can discern between what hat you're wearing, but Joe Public can't. They only know you as one thing. Now, some people may know you as Bill, the guy at church, and Bill, the guy in the chamber, and Councillor Peavoy, but the large bulk of the municipality knows you
As
for your
we are.
elected role.
Yeah.
And so it's tricky, no question. But I just saw this thing with Mayor Spearman and thought, there it is,
Yeah.
bang on the nose. He probably intended thinking his family and friends would find it hilarious. The problem is the rest of the world found it offensive for a mayor to say that.
Yeah.
And he's taken a beating for it.
Yeah, it really did, to the point where you had to apologize publicly, which is never easy to do.
I think that this guideline is try not to be the village idiot and play it safe is a very, very good counsel. Because, like it or not, we were elected to represent the town and the citizens. And they hold us at that level. And we better be careful what we are posting on our Facebook sites or our Twitters. You know, I can give you an example. I saw a post that somebody sent to me, and I laughed my head off. I thought it was so funny, and told my daughter about it. She said, "Oh, you should post that, Dad." I said, "I wouldn't dare." It's funny, but also somebody could have taken that wrong, and I would have been tarred and feathered, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to be very careful what I put on there, and I think you just have to play it safe. You have to.
Well, the point is with social media, anything, you can hold a private conversation with somebody, and if they quote you or misquote you, you can say, "I didn't say that," or "I didn't mean that." But once you post something on it's public. There's no private conversations on social media. Everything that you say is basically public knowledge, and so you've got to treat it as such.
Well, and the other side of the coin, Councillor, is you can post a private thing to them where the public don't see that.
But it's still
But just
it's
tick
still
that
there.
person off, and they've still got it, and they'll print it.
Well, that's what I say. Once
so
you've printed
Be
it,
careful.
once you've printed it, it's out there.
It's out there forever.
You know, and it can be brought back.
Yeah, it can
So,
be.
yeah.
Thank you very much for
Yeah,
your
no worries.
presentation. It was very informative and good discussion, Council. Thank you so much for your input.
Thanks, David.
We need to adopt the minutes of February the 3rd Council of the Whole meeting. So I need a motion.
I move
Councillor
that we
Edmonds.
adopt the minutes from the last CCW meeting.
On February the 3rd, 2015. Thank you. Any questions regarding this item? No? All in favor? Thank you. Minutes are adopted.
Councillor Norman signs them, actually.
Yep, that's right. Okay. While we're at it, I'd like to publicly thank Councillor Barnes for doing his very last little bit of his official duty. So thank you very much for been deputy mayor for the past 8 months. You represented us well. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a
And,
great honor, and I really enjoyed it
Thank you.
very much.
Today would have been Councillor Bengry first crack at this position. Unfortunately, he's not well.
I sure hope he gets well soon.
Yeah,
But he's back, and he's just.
He's back, but has a few health issues.
Maybe it's-
Maybe we should send him a card or something. you know.
Well, maybe it's worth noting publicly, though, that by policy, he is, as of your retirement, our deputy mayor.
I'm retired.
Yes,
Your retirement from the position.
yes, and when he
So
be
he's
there
currently, as
at
of
the-
today, deputy mayor of Cardston.
Yeah,
Do we have?
yes, and if he is at the next meeting, we would make sure that publicly recognize that.
Yeah, does that, did we ever make a motion, or do we need to make a motion to do that?
Madam Chairman, that was assigned in the organizational meeting last October.
Oh,
Yeah, you have a motion that
Yeah.
you assigned Councillor Barnes until March and Councillor Bengry for the next 8
So
months.
that was
Yeah.
Already there in place.
We
Covered
we
that.
had
Yeah.
the
There
two of
doesn't-
them.
there doesn't need to be any special swearing in ceremony or
Not
anything like
until
that.
next
And-
time.
We'll
And
do an
all the
organizational
banking-
meeting in October again. And
Perfect.
assign them out, yeah.
All the banking has been taken care of, etc.
I'm
Maybe we can get a
I'm
special
no longer
pin.
on there.
You do the passing of the pin,
Yeah.
now you're deputy.
Okay, we're going to go to item 7. And maybe, Jeff, you could speak to this draft policy. This is one that, funny enough, Mr. Koff suggested that we have, and Jeff had it on his desk and showed, we already thought of the surplus asset inventory and other item disposal bylaw. Maybe you want to talk about it?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is something that actually Tyler started working on this. And between Hawken and myself and Tyler, we've come up with this iteration of this draft for your review. There's two driving pieces that I wanted this policy in place for. One is I wanted a consistent method of disposing of surplus goods. Now, generally, we've been very consistent. Normally, we have once a year a bit of an auction where we make a list of things, it's sealed bid, you bring them in, we have a reserve price. That's been the case, but sometimes we find things mid-season, we find things that we used for a while or nobody bought. You know, there's a number of things that will be kicking around. There's two things I want to avoid. One is, I want to be careful if any of those things end up that our employees buy them. Not that I care if they buy them, I just want the process to be transparent prior to them taking them home, so that people feel they went for market value. Otherwise, there's always some suspicion that they went for far less than what we could have received, and essentially the taxpayer purchased it all in the first place. The second piece is over the courses of our construction, we end up with a lot of salvage and scrap, which has a monetary value. And the system of accounting for that and for getting that back has never been consistent. We've always done it, but it just hasn't been a consistent way that it's been done over the years. And so we're about ready to do some more of this, and I wanted to have in place and make it very clear going forward that how that was going to be dealt with. Those were the two driving pieces. Really, they were risk mitigation and transparency reasons. I don't have any red flags for this. It wasn't, there's no big issues, but I felt we could make sure there wasn't going to be issues in the future by having something in place.
Okay, questions? Do you want to address a few questions to
Yeah,
Jeff at this point?
what would be an example of salvage from a construction?
Sure. So we mostly see cast iron from old pipes that we would take up. We see a lot of brass or copper, sometimes from fittings that come up, old fittings. The electricians will have 5 feet of heavy copper ground wire, 6 feet, 3 feet, stuff that can't be used anywhere, but it's the heavy, heavy, heavy gauge, and the price of copper is quite high. We'll see oil, just in the process of doing our maintenance on our equipment. We'll have a lot of used oil that we keep in a container, and then it's picked up once a year, or whenever, when we
Is it
call.
sold? Is there value on that?
Yeah. So those are a number of the different things through our operations we will find scrap or salvage.
Okay.
So by policy, what do we do with that salvage now, or are you asking us to make a policy?
Right, so there isn't one governing it right now, and I see it as an area of risk.
Okay.
Right now, the CAO has just done best judgment.
Well, right now, the oil guys come and pick up the oil and send us a check, and when they're salvaged, the guys run it in and get some cash and bring it back, and I mean, it's fine, but it's pretty loosey-goosey, and I see an exposure there.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure, and historically, it wasn't always done that way. I will say that, if you go back 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, the salvage would be used to buy a fridge for the public workshop, or do something like that, which in and of itself is fine, but it's not accounted for properly.
Is that,
And
yeah.
there's a bit of risk there.
essentially to answer your question, Councillor Barnes, in our packet, we have that draft
Yes.
policy that is there.
Yeah.
So what we need to give Jeff is some input as to, do you feel this sufficient? Did you read it sufficiently in order for next meeting to approve that draft as a policy rather than as a draft and move on with it?
It looked good to me as I was reading through it. I think what Jeff was saying, when it comes to salvage, that's a matter if it was a considerable amount of money, because I know that, you know, I have a family member who has collected copper and stuff like that, and got quite considerable amounts of money for that, you know.
There's a couple of points I just want to make sure that council's aware, because I feel in my position it's fair to do that. This policy leaves a lot of discretion with the CAO.
Yeah.
Frankly, because I don't think it reasonable to bring, hey, I got a $300 item, council, how should we dispose of it?
Yeah.
What's the method, and are you okay with, do you want 3 quotes to reflect market value?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be onerous on council.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge right now that it does leave a lot of discretion with the CAO to determine if it is market value and what the method of disposal will be.
Yeah.
The other thing that it leaves discretion is we have had in the past where we've had a community group or someone within the community that could use an asset we have with very little market value, and we've just donated it to them. Because we felt it would help continue their cause in the community, and we felt it was a good use for it. It hasn't been to private individuals. We've made sure it's an entity or a group or a club.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the other one that it's not as regimented is we have a lot of things that have small value. So I'm trying to think, we had a recent example. We cleaned the recreation room and we had like a couple of wagons and some stick horses and just this little stuff. So we put $20, $25 on it, put it on the Facebook page, and it was first come, first serve. We just dealt with it like that.
They're gone.
And because they were of fairly small value. Now, is that the fairest process in the world? No, it's not. But we're talking about low value items here.
Right.
Miscellaneous items. So I just want council to be aware that there are some of those pieces in there that leave a lot of discretion in the office. I think it's reasonable, but obviously that's up for you to decide ultimately.
I appreciated the way it's written. I will definitely use, there's a typo or two inside there, but those are nonsense to discuss that. To me, it's a reasonable policy that really tightens up the parameters of disposal of assets, and I think it's a good thing that has been done there.
Do you need a recommendation
So
then?
thanks. Yeah, we could have a recommendation to council to approve that.
I'm prepared to make that recommendation that we, next meeting, we present this and adopt this policy.
That we adopt policy
The draft. Policy
D30,
D30.
disposal
The
of
disposal of
surplus.
surplus assets, inventory, and other items as policy at the next meeting.
Okay, any questions?
I'm, after George Cuff, I'm trying to think of the proper way, we used to kind of recommend it to approval, and I'm saying maybe the motion is just that we present this at council as the proper motion now. I'm just not sure.
I think maybe he's proposing first reading in the next.
Well,
it's
it
not
doesn't need
Well,
first
it's
reading.
not a policy.
This is a policy.
It's a
not a
policy, you
bylaw.
can approve it by vote.
This is, Councillor Creed, you touched on something very
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
Because I was was I talking to Graham? Just before the meeting, I was thinking this exact same thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
we've had a little bit of verbal instruction from George. I haven't had a chance to read his report, but for about 1 minute of it. And he's recommending some changes. I think my gut feeling is that we proceed as normal until we change the
Change
procedural
everything.
bylaw.
Yeah, I think
Because we have a full procedural bylaw to change.
Yeah.
Even our agenda is in that bylaw, which verbally, it may be in the report, but he wants that out of the bylaw and put as a policy so it can easily be amended.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been trying to reconcile if we all agree in principle that it's best practice, but we haven't put it down on paper anywhere. How do we
But
proceed?
It's a good point, and I think once we all have the document, review it, work with it, have maybe a work session on it,
Yeah.
then I think we'll be able to kind of see how we need to change our procedural bylaw
I would
separate
suggest our
policy
processes
from
weren't
procedure.
broken,
Okay,
Yeah.
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 but could they be tweaked and improved? You bet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
If I may, just to show contrast, under our old system, we would be discussing this, ripping it apart and amending it here in committee of the whole, and then taking a very solid, amended document to council
I thought that's
for
what we just did.
approval.
Yeah.
But according to George Cuff's recommendation, the idea he was trying to convey, I think, as I heard it, was you want to have those discussions in an open council meeting, where the public doesn't see a pre-approved document, they see the give and take of the amending process. So if there's any recommended changes, you would save those till you got into a regular council meeting. So that would be the contrast.
Well, once we read exactly the way
Yeah.
he puts it, it's a
he has a
little
unique spin on
different.
it, yeah.
It's a little different from what you're proposing, it's a little bit different.
Anyway, we
But
can look at that, I guess.
We'll look at it, but it's a good point, it's a good point from
Yeah.
both of you, thank
Just
you so
thinking the
much.
same.
Yeah, we're recommending.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, so we have that motion, so all in favor? Thank you. Okay, the next item would be 7B, the land use bylaw. You just had Ryan Dick speak to us regarding the importance of that document, and it is an important document. Now, what we need to do is have a request for decision from Nolan as to how do we establish that committee. I think it should be a little bit of a mix kind of, how would you say that? Mixed kind of people being on a table, being elected official and non-elected official.
A wide variety of stakeholders.
Yeah, and yet not to be cumbersome, too big. The MDP had how many people? About
5,
10? No, MDP was large.
Oh.
MDP,
Oh
we
boy, you
had
got me,
about,
Mayor. I want to
you
say you
know-
had 7 citizens at large, 6 or 7?
yeah, it was fairly large.
Well, I was
So
thinking NPC.
what the MDP, what Ryan suggested, that we try to see how many of those people who worked on that would like to join that. I was on that committee, but I think somebody that is on also, like the chamber or whatever should be there, no doubt, and somebody that's maybe already working with the subdivision, etc., might be a good thing, because you have seen application and you would have a better sense than myself, for example, as to those type of things. But we need also people who have some sort of expertise, like somebody in a real estate world, somebody in the construction industry or something like that. I think it would be quite important to have a mix, to have those people at the table too. So is that something that we need to kind of look at it from that perspective? I don't know, what's your impression of that? Do you?
If I could, you'll recognize last time this was done in what did you say, 09?
09.
That's right. In 09, council did not at that time have citizens at large on the committee. So they met and then had an open house, so they could get that broad feedback. Now, I should say they had a public hearing, which people came to. The open house, 2 people came to. So, depending on how that's dealt with. I think it's highly appropriate if you have citizens at large on this committee. I would just caution that we keep it to a manageable number.
And that's the whole point. So that's the first thing we need to look at. Ryan was talking about 5 on a committee. 5 seems to be what he has worked with on other committee. I would say more than 7, we're in trouble managing the conversation and moving the decisions forward. What's your opinion, Councillor?
I
Councillor
think
Edmonds?
6 is good, like we had on the MDP.
6?
If you get more, then it's very hard to get everybody lined up for a meeting.
Yeah,
There's
and
always
that's,
somebody that
Well, and I think, yeah, if you do end up with more, you just say, look, if you can't make it to the meeting, you can't make it, but you were invited and you could have been there, right? Your sector could have been represented. I think we want to make sure that people don't come back and say, hey, we weren't represented. So whether it be industrial, you
okay,
know,
so maybe what we
maybe
need
the
to
big
do,
land use designations.
so maybe,
residential, commercial.
let's look at it from the, you feel somebody,
I'm going to suggest maybe somebody who had been in real estate that's retired. I was thinking Ron Pitcher, done a lot. He's been a former mayor and he's very knowledgeable in those type of things. Maybe somebody like that who's had that experience would be good on that
okay.
committee.
Now, here is something we could do. Let's try to see a little bit what kind of sector we would be interested in, and then maybe let's try to flesh it out. And if you have some specific names that you think are people that could be helpful, then we could channel them through administration and they could contact those people and find out who is actually has a time to give as a volunteer to that, because it's totally volunteer, right?
Now, do you want people that are within the town?
Oh, yeah, this is
So
the
it
town's
has to
land use
be-
bylaw,
yeah,
yes,
it
no
has to be.
question.
So you said somebody of the Chamber of Commerce, a rep from the Chamber of Commerce should be there. We have,
In fact, I can just tell you from experience, all the conversations we've had with problems with land use have all been county. So, you know, what they can come is the county problems.
Oh, okay.
Specific problems that the county is having right now that's counter business. So to have somebody that could come back and say, okay, well, here's why you can't do that, because the county's done something like that, and here's where we came to a problem with it. There's been some examples. We have far more problems with county bylaws and business than we do right now with, you know, town issues.
so.
So we don't want to create any, is what I'm saying. We don't want to go the
Jeff?
direction the county's gone.
Jeff?
I want to point out too, sometimes we can get overwhelmed by the number of stakeholders that need to be involved. If we use our open houses and public hearings effectively, all those sectors can still be heard.
Yeah.
You know, if we make sure that they have organized delegations that come present their information at a public hearing
Okay.
or an open house, those opportunities are still there.
So there are two models then. Or we do it ourselves through an open house, or we have a committee that does it more with at-large people. Is that the two models
And you
that
can
we
still have
can?
your open houses, they are not mutually exclusive, I don't
Okay,
mean to
so
suggest they are.
help me understand then a little bit how it went in the past.
So how it went in the past, it was council and administration would meet specifically about the land use bylaw. There was changes proposed, and then there was an open house, or I should say a public hearing, to have my terms correct. The first thing that happened was a public hearings, council saying, we're looking to put this on the table. And then after that, there was some changes that came out of that. Then the town had an open house where they presented the land use bylaw reflecting the changes from the feedback they got from the public hearing. Nobody attended it. So after that, they had first reading, then had another public hearing, if there was any last minute stuff, and then they finished the reading. So that's how the last one went. I'm not suggesting that's how this one must go. I think it's great if there's some citizens at large on a committee to steer it, as long as it can work. It's one more committee for council, for 2 or 3 or 4 or 7 councillors. That's also a caution. We've added a lot of committees over the last year or so.
Yes, we have.
So while this one's ad hoc, we know there's a definitive timeline on it. So it may be okay.
Okay, what I'm trying to get out of this is a good representation of the segment of the town. Because if we don't have that at a public hearing, then how are we sure that what we did will not come back later on to bite us because nobody came and told us how much they didn't like it? Then at that point we could say you had your chance and you didn't show up. Fair enough. But still, I appreciate your model, except as you said, you had 2 people show up.
After the public hearing, they had an open house and you had 2 people
Right,
attend.
so 2 people, or maybe the people are not interested. Well, that's okay.
If you recall, Mr. Cuff said said that we are elected to represent the
The
town.
people,
right?
which is true.
And he said that oftentimes people don't show up to the meetings anyways, unless it's a real controversial thing. They expect that we're going to do the best thing possible for the community. And I don't have a problem with council doing this,
Okay,
and having the open house, and having the public meetings, and I think the important thing is that if we do that, we need to put them in the newspaper, we need to let that information, get it out there, we need to have it on our webpage, it needs to be on the Facebook, under the Cardston Community Discussion page, and I think that we'll get some input by doing that. And so I think we could do it.
okay, so there is also a survey that is going to be circulated,
Yeah.
right? The survey that was in the past.
That's this survey that's
Which-
right here.
Yeah.
Which then maybe what we need to do as councillors to make sure that we let people know how important that will be, because it's going to affect the result of that, the changes, right?
Well, there again,
Very
it's all about communicating and being open,
Yeah, what-
transparent.
Wondering what the intent is for the survey, and who is it going out to, and how would it be going out?
To everybody.
Yeah.
See what you're saying.
Madam Chair, to be determined, I guess my initial thought was we would do it much like the citizen satisfaction, we door to door the thing.
Door-to-door,
probably.
yeah.
I think it's one that needs widespread distribution, and
Yeah.
it's worth the few $100s it takes us to
Yeah.
find a group to take it door to
Yeah,
door.
for sure.
The other thing too, if we plan it accordingly, you have your dates for your public hearings in the survey,
Right,
and ask people to come and participate and comment.
Okay.
If that's how you want to approach it.
two councillors are missing, so I'm wondering if you want to decide the format today, or recommend that to council already, or if you prefer to look at it. Do you feel more comfortable doing it as a meeting for council? Is that what was done last time?
Yes.
So-
In a council meeting,
Having a council do it.
or just in another meeting, we just
Yeah.
focus on this.
In my mind, I see it, we come
To a
in at 4
Saturday.
o'clock on a 5 o'clock meeting or something a couple of times, right? When you're already coming
Yeah.
in, and we piggyback it on a council
Sure.
meeting a couple times. And
That works.
Okay.
I want to say one other thing before I forget. We know that this has been quite controversial in the county, as Councillor Peavoy pointed out. I think it's important that our public knows we're starting this process not with major changes in mind. This is simplifying the document, allowing where we need to for new things like was talked about with renewable energies and different things. We're not setting about to tear this thing down and build it
No,
back up
it's
again.
not the intent.
It is
Well,
an
that's-
improvement document.
That's why I really like the suggestion that we got from Orsk, that the first meeting kind of be a brainstorm meeting, you invite more stakeholders to. That's not your committee, that's
Yeah.
just, you get some initial information and specific areas of concern, areas that people are like, hey, here's what I want to see changed, or here's what I definitely do not want to see changed. And you get that all out at the beginning of the process, so you can say, hey, look, we took all that into consideration when we drafted the thing, so. I think that is really good for disclosure and transparency.
Would you then invite a specific segment of the population then to make sure that there is the resident, but also the real estate, also the builders? Could we have maybe that? That might
Make some
be a
specific
good way.
invitations.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it could be a forum regarding the, and allowing people to express their views.
We-
Can you look at?
What did he call it? It wasn't a brainstorm session, but it was a, what did he call it? I've got it here.
Information.
He called it, oh, it's on this last page, a kickoff visioning
Yeah.
meeting. Almost like a strategic meeting. To identify what those areas are.
Is that something we could even,
He suggests that before the questionnaire goes out. And I don't know, maybe we do the questionnaire, get the results, and then have the visioning meeting.
yeah, I
The
don't
ri-
think
the
so.
risk of an invited visioning meeting is you risk not inviting someone who felt they should have been there.
Yeah.
That's the one risk. You may have someone incredibly passionate about this, that we don't invite. Maybe for good reason. But that's the only risk. But again, if this is a type of bylaw that requires statutory public hearings.
Right.
So there'll always be that opportunity for Joe and Jane public to give their input. So no one should ever be shut out of the process, ever. Because we will have to have statutory public hearings on this type of a bylaw. Yeah, it could work.
Well, you know, we've done a cat, we're doing a cat bylaw, we've done a dog bylaw. They're pretty controversial. We did have people here, and we're looking at, like I said, not a lot of major changes. There's a few things there that we're gonna tweak. And if we worked it and then have our open house or our public hearing, I think we can take care of it. I really don't, I don't think it's a big problem.
Okay, so, Councillor Peavoy, could you see this happening that way? But yours is to have a meeting before we start the process.
Well,
And
at some
Councillor
point, we
Barnes,
need a
at this-
visioning meeting, I think
Yeah.
is what he's suggesting.
Yeah, Councillor Barnes at this point is, let's do it and then present it. So the visioning would be with us rather than with the whole of the people of the town. So that's where you differ somewhat.
See, I think I think this survey covers a lot of
Yeah.
questions.
Would act
Survey,
as
yeah.
that visioning,
Yeah.
in fact it
That would be
would.
part of it, I think.
Mhm.
I think it's
Okay.
important to get that out there and get an idea, and then we can discuss it and work with it.
So essentially, we need to try to get people to
This is
understand
part
how
of the
important
visioning,
it
as
is.
I see it,
I think
Yeah.
the survey.
Yeah, so you would
Well, yeah, I think the survey will
act
get
as a
a lot of,
visioning.
Especially if we go door to door, like Jeff is suggesting.
yeah, that
Yeah.
should give us some good input.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Councillor Edmonds, which way do you?
Sounds good to me.
So council does it and get all those surveys, use that to get a sense of the community and move forward making changes? That's the way you view it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So if we, okay with that, maybe that is a recommendation we could bring that forward. Starting to wonder which way to do it too. But
Do we
you
need,
want
do
to
we
do
need,
that?
do we want a
Yes.
motion? Sure, I will move that we present this survey, let's see.
That we present the
Present the
procedure to establish the land use bylaw
Right.
review.
That we bring this,
Review.
that we bring this to council and,
Yeah.
yeah.
And at that time, are you proposing we approve the survey, the question?
Yes, that's what
Yeah.
mainly improving, sending out the survey at our council meeting.
Can council bring us any feedback to the next meeting on that survey? I would suggest it's a fairly rough draft Ryan's put together, so
Yeah,
it
I
may
have to
need
read it
something, or
over.
need some
Yeah.
tweak. By all means, if
Oh.
you could bring some feedback on that, I'll send it back to
Yeah.
Ryan.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 Just a general thought, not anything specific about it, but generally, I think we want to just be careful it doesn't look like we're leading the questions, right, one way or another. For instance, I saw in here, and they were fine, examples of questions about having larger lots, but no, contradicting questions about, infills and going smaller, the other way, right? So it just looks like, well, we only have the one option. We're going
Yeah.
bigger, we're going
Yeah,
longer.
it kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
You're right.
just my general impression that we gotta be careful, Personally, I love larger lots, so I liked the question, but if
Yeah.
I liked
No,
smaller
it
Calgary
can-
feel,
Yeah,
smaller lots.
yeah.
Oh,
it
heaven
kinda makes
forbid.
sense.
Heaven forbid.
Okay, so we
Put
have a
some notes
motion on
together.
the table
Can you
to,
repeat that, please?
Oh.
okay.
What it
The-
is.
Read it back to us.
No,
The motion is a recommendation to have the land use bylaw review on next council, including the draft survey.
So we're saying the process
The
policy.
process.
Yeah, it's a process.
We'll put a communication plan together for the land use bylaw,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like a
make
communication
sense? You
and
got it?
community engagement
Yeah.
plan
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
land use
All
bylaw,
right.
something like that.
Thank you. So all in favor? Thank you very much.
So-
Okay, 7C is a new kind of techie kind of device that Jeff is going to present to council.
I was going to show you on the overhead, but I'm frustrated with the overhead right now, so I'm not
Great
going to.
communication.
Do you need the
You will notice next meeting, you won't have a council motion list report. So I'm giving you the heads up. We've been using Civic Web, it's been great. The costs have continued to creep up on us, and so I canceled our subscription with them last week, well, 2 weeks ago now. And we're going to phase out of using that as our action tracker and how we're tracking council and other assignments within the organization. Internally, we have been, let's call it beta testing for a couple of weeks, a web-based software called Wunderlist. And so we have the council assignments on that. What we'd like to do is over the next month or so when Graham's here, is to load it on each of your devices so that you can just hit the icon and we will share the council motion list with each of you. So that you can essentially look at where it's at in real time anytime you want.
This is the progress report that we've
Yeah.
got.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So you will have it on your devices to look at. So for us, it's a superior program in some ways. It's inferior in others, but one, it's free, so that's incredibly superior. Versus the $1,600 we got to a year for the action tracker. I just couldn't justify that anymore. And the other thing is you can have it on your phone, your tablet, your home computer, and it all syncs all the time. And it allows us to put subtasks and comments. So I would comment and say, hey Graham, I did this today on it, great. I got this prepared, I'll leave it for the mayor to sign. And so you can track all of that. And it's doing largely what we were getting before, but it's a little more intuitive and it's a little more friendly to use. So I was going to take you through it a bit tonight, but for the sake of time and my frustration with the projector, I'm not going to. What I'll try and do next time is with Graham and I, it'll take 2 minutes to load on your devices. We'll use your email of choice as the account on it. And then if you want to use it personally and create new lists, you can have an unlimited amount of lists. So for mine, I have council assignments that's shared with everyone, but then I also have about 6 or 8 that are just personal ones that I don't share, they're just mine. So all the different departments, and I have my personal just tasks on there, and it's on my phone and on my tablet and on my laptop, and it all syncs between them. So it has some good features. So I just want you to know we're going to change that if that's, I'm hoping it's okay with council. It'll just allow you to click the icon on your tablet, look at the council, click on the assignment, see what the comments are being made. You can comment on it if there's a specific question. I'm going to caution you not to comment on a lot of them, but if you choose to comment on them because you're saying, hey guys, why is this being brought back? We'll see that, it'll pop up. We get a notification on our phone or our computer that someone's commented on an assignment assigned to me. I get a little notice in the top corner of my computer that I have a notification. So it seems to be working well. We've been using it for a couple of weeks. We used them both there for about a couple of weeks to see how it was going. And we're prepared to switch over. We've given our notice to Civic Web that we're leaving that. So.
Thank you. I'm kind of anxious
How long
to
have we
see how
committed
it
to
works.
them for yet?
Civic Web?
Yeah.
3 months. So we had to pay 90 days of the our renewal comes the 1st of March. So we told them before the end of March, so we had to give them 90 days. So we still have it. We've populated Wunderlist so we can see how it works and its functionality. And we've all just kind of quickly moved over to Wunderlist. It's
Okay.
just easier for everybody.
That's a great thing. So Jeff, do you want Councillor to come during the week
So
to
what I'm
start to
what I'm
approve?
thinking is even at the next meeting, if we have a dinner break or something, it won't take us much longer than that
Okay.
to have you set up.
All right.
And between Graham and I, we'll grab your devices a couple at a time, and if you
Okay.
want, go to Wunderlist, download it on your tablet, download it on your laptop, and then it's ready to go. But
Okay.
it's a 2-minute download.
Sounds good.
It's called Wunderlist.
It's written on your, in the
Was it
background.
public domain? I mean, can you find it?
If you look
Yeah,
in
it's
the
a web-based-
background,
web-based
it's written,
software.
We could almost find it ourselves, or could.
Oh yeah, no question, no question.
Oh.
If you go load it and load up your email and then just send us what email you're using, we'll just send you an invitation to the council list to that email.
No.
Good.
That's what would happen.
So, Councillor Peavoy?
Yeah, so, and this is just kind of my thought as I heard that, I think it's wonderful. It sounds like if we have the opportunity to comment, there might be a little bit of potential there for micromanagement on administrative side. So I'm wondering if and I'm suggesting that we as council, and I appreciate that we have the option to say, hey, I'm curious about this, but if we only kept the power to say the word update with a question mark, and then that just says, hey, we're looking for an update, we're not trying to micromanage, I don't want to know how you're going about this, I'm just saying I'd like an update. and then just a
if there is
one-word
nothing
reply
that
from
has been-
council.
If nothing has moved on
Sure, if
that
nothing has
item.
moved in a while and you want an
That's-
update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I'm worried we're gonna cross
Yeah.
that line.
And, you know, I think it's a very wise comment, thank you.
Well, yeah, I have a similar concern, since this is basically replacing the town motion list, that we don't drop into below the radar, like, if there's questions, they really should be addressed in council meeting, not
Yeah,
just
and I-
emailing back and forth.
That would be my preference, because what happens is I'll go do the list tonight. In fact, while we're going to Red Deer, I'll probably type it on the tablet. I haven't talked Tyler into driving yet, but. So I assign that to all the different staff, and to be frank, you needn't be messaging my staff asking about assignments to them,
Okay.
right? So ask me at council meeting.
Yes.
Take a note, ask me here. I'm the one accountable to you to make sure those assignments are carried out.
Right.
So that risk appears, frankly, we didn't have a way to block you from commenting. So we looked, but
But you have a way.
Yeah.
You have a way by, under 7D, under your communication
yeah, okay.
plan.
let me grab
If
that.
you had in your communication plan, that's something that I think would be wise. If you had a little bit of a policy regarding interaction with that, Wonderlist, as Councillor Peavoy said, this is for your eyes and not for your thumb.
So if you're segueing, Madam Chair, into the 7D, I'm happy to segue with you.
Go ahead.
One question on
Oh, I'm so
7C.
sorry.
No, it's fine. 7C, the way we've been getting our report up till now has included, I mean, there's been a little bit of an overlap when something has been fulfilled, it's done, but it still shows up on a couple of
Shows up.
reports,
Yeah.
just reminding us it's done, and then eventually administration makes the choice to drop it.
Yeah.
I'm guessing with Wonderlist, they're there forever. We can go back
Yeah.
and see 3 years ago.
You can go back to completed items,
Right.
so by default, it doesn't show them because it would make the list really long.
Right, right.
But at the end of the active list, there's a button that says completed items, you click it, and they all.
And
And are those sorted by most recently
They're
completed?
sorted by the date, so on the active list, they're sorted by the date they're inputted. So once we get in the cycle, they'll basically be in the order of council meetings. And then the completed ones, I think, are sorted by when they were completed. So, but it's also searchable. So if you recognize that there was something specific to a name or a person or something, you can search that to find it as well. So yes, that's there in perpetuity.
Right, I just, and I express that question just because I've appreciated the reports we've had, and I fear relevant information might be a little harder to find in this behemoth that is now Wonderlist.
Well, then we need to just keep each other up to speed on how it's working for everybody.
Sure.
Because we've looked to a different solution. We recognize it has some shortfalls. We haven't found one that has everything we want yet, but we think this one's pretty close. So yeah, let's just keep having that dialogue. If you feel that things are falling off the radar and you can't find it and you don't know what's going on, let's have that discussion. And we'll look for a way to correct it.
And it's, yeah,
Just preliminarily, is that a word?
It is
Preliminarily.
now.
I foresee the day where I might say, I'd love to have a CAO summary that's relevant to council, because it's gonna get big, I can tell already, it's gonna get big, right? And so,
Yeah, we've used our discretion to cut off the old action tracker, kind of where we felt everything that was still relevant and on the table, and then drop the rest of your correct where that. So we may have to have that on occasion.
but for now, yeah, let's give it a try.
Yeah.
But let's play with it. I don't think Wonderlist has envisioned this use for it, so we're gonna test that and see how it goes.
It's great, $1,600 is great too, so,
Yeah.
well done.
thank you so much.
Saved it.
Wonderlist
Okay.
is spelled with a U.
Yes.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
it's like
Wonderlist with a-
Wunder.
It's worth a look.
Wonderlist. Okay, Jeff is going to address the communication plan. So what I was trying to say, Jeff, is if we could have annexes to that communication plan, I think it would be very useful. And to kind of gather a little bit, we have bits and pieces here and there in different policies, kind of bring them together under the same umbrella. Just an idea.
Yeah, I like it. The mayor mentioned to me earlier that if we put together a communication plan, we may do well to reference all of our policies or bylaws related to communication in the same document. That way it's all there, and I agree, I think that's a good idea. The other thing though, my position on this plan and what I was gonna recommend changed at about 3 o'clock, because one of the things in George Cuff's report that I happen to flip through and see is some things to tweak and amend and include in the communication plan.
Yeah,
So I guess what I would ask for right now is if you can all review this and give some feedback, then we can start to compile all these things and bring back a much more robust plan from even last Friday when we put this together.
good, thank you. I think that is a good start. I read it, I think there's a lot of good stuff inside there. And I think we can make it even better if we substantiate what we mean by communication plan and have everything one-stop shop. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, under correspondence, you have the Old Man Watershed Council acknowledging that we made a donation for their educational programs. Under 9B, we have a letter of a concerned citizen regarding the cleaning of the sidewalks and area of the town that should be considered town cleanup as the top of the bridges on 3rd. So, Jeff, I'm kind of wondering, those are issues for bylaw officer and for your public works. You have a little bit of two different items that are being addressed there. So,
Agreed.
I'm wondering how you want to handle that. You will respond to this citizen?
Yeah.
This is normally the way we handle those letters. And there is a concern that maybe we need to be more vigilant as to the enforcing of the policies that we have. Jeff?
Would council, and this can get a little tricky because we can get any number of letters with any number of concerns. There's some legitimacy to everything in this letter, I'm not discounting that at all. Would council like me just to provide you with maybe a bit of a response to council from our bylaw officer on each of these items? Just a little blurb saying, here's what's been happening, here's some challenges with the enforcement of this. Something like that, would that be a benefit to,
Yeah, I think so.
to be able to address
I
this
think
properly?
this letter could be probably written by 30 or 40 other
Right, that's
people
what I'm
in
saying,
this
it's
town.
legitimate, agreed.
And I think that letter represents concern of more than one person
Can I
in
make a
this town.
comment
Go
on
ahead.
this? Not everybody goes out and walks as much as Linda and her husband. And I can see where they would see a lot of they're all over town. And they
Yes.
they're very outdoorsy people, and in the wintertime, that doesn't stop them, they're out there walking, and it is dangerous. I mean, I can see exactly where she's coming from, because I've had some of those concerns too. I would weight this letter a little more than I would others that just have complaints, because they're out there all the time. And they have found some situations, I mean, Linda took a real bad fall
Yeah, I understand.
recently. And she, I mean, literally hundreds of walks every year. They're out there almost every day in all types of weather. And so I share her concerns, and I think this is a very, very valid letter. And when you say that 30 people could have written this letter, some could have written the letter, but not as forceful as
Yeah, no, but
she is. I think it's serious.
I'm not discounting what she's
Yeah.
saying. On the contrary, I'm trying to say she represents the opinion
Yes,
of
she
more than
does.
herself.
But
That's
I
what
think
I'm
it's a
trying
good
to say.
idea that Lloyd answer to some of these issues here.
I'll have them write up something for council.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I may
Councillor
speak to
Peavoy.
that, just to clarify, in case anybody maybe heard you wrong, I don't think Councillor Barnes is saying that we should weight this citizen above other citizens. I
No.
think you're saying that this citizen took the
No.
time to give us specifics that are
No.
very trackable and relevant, and so
Exactly.
that, you know,
No,
that we
I
can
think
take
the
action.
the content,
Yeah,
the
the content,
content
exactly.
merits
Yeah, the content
action.
It was,
Yes,
it was
absolutely.
And
very
I
specific,
agree.
it provided lots of good
Yeah.
specifics there.
Okay, thank you very much.
You know,
Councillor
You
Creed?
know, with the citizens like this, and maybe it'll, you know, when we hear back from Lloyd, you know, it'll tell us something, but, you know, to find those sidewalks that aren't being cleared, you need somebody like that to report it.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm glad that she did.
And, well, and then maybe, you know, somebody like, take the initiative to call Lloyd when you come across the property and say, you know, can you check this one out? Because, you know, this sidewalks aren't being cleared and, so that it can be dealt with. Because, I mean, I walk along a lot of sidewalks that aren't cleared, but, I mean, I don't take the initiative to call Lloyd and say, come and, maybe I should.
I mean, fortunately, in some areas of town, I've seen people who've got their snow blowers and they'll go out and do 2 or 3 blocks of their neighborhood for everybody.
Which is great.
And it's a wonderful thing. But there are some areas also where there's a lot of seniors that are they're feeble and it's very difficult for them to get out and get it done.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't have, you know, the person that's doing it for them on a regular basis. But having said that, it still needs to get done.
Yeah.
The responsibility is that the property owners need to have it done, or if it's renters,
Yeah.
the property owner still is responsible to have it done. If his renters don't do it, it has to be done.
Well, I think
Okay.
some of the ones that I've seen that have trouble is, actually, it wouldn't be the seniors, but it's the young families, the young fathers that have to be up early and out to work and
Yeah.
home, and they don't get around to it, or
Yeah.
things like that, but
But I
it's
think-
a challenge.
I think all that is really points to the fact that administration will deal with
Yeah.
it.
I'll bring in something back, yeah.
If I
In some
may,
way.
and then we're talking a lot about the snow issue. There's other issues in here, though, that again, I mean, there's several issues.
Yeah,
Many of
yeah.
which, I'll just speak to one, you know, this sports idea. You know, we have a bylaw, we have enforcement, then we have comments like Councillor Barnes, which I agree with, that, you know, hey, we shouldn't get rid of street hockey, you know, as a whole. We should, you know, where it's a problem, right? So case by case,
Exactly.
we say, look, these kids are obviously causing all kinds of problems. In fact, I've heard a report just this week that this exact property, and I won't name the property, these people like went out to a car and just started kicking it. And so I'm saying case by case. I don't want to discourage street basketball, but I mean, you know, maybe this particular issue needs to maybe really be looked into.
That's a bylaw enforcement, so I'm sure there is quite a few things that need to be looked at.
Right.
Because those things need to be reported, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we good on that? Can we pass on the last item of correspondence? It's from Shaw. It's Darren Cunningham, who is now replacing Laurie Templeton. Laurie Templeton is now retiring, and I'm wondering if we as a town can sign just a note, thank you for services. I don't know if we dealt with that person a lot, it appears. Okay, so she thinks that she has dealt with us, but we don't know that she
Well,
has dealt with us.
I know her. but
Okay.
Twice in my 6.5 years, I think, so.
Oh,
A great person, don't get me wrong. but-
okay.
It's not like Ryan, who's here every week.
All right,
Yeah.
so it's a different type of thing. Okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe, what's your feeling, Council? We let go of it?
I think it's a
Let
good
go of it.
sentiment, but we
Yeah.
probably just
Yeah.
need to
Nice to know
know where
that.
the line
We-
is on
Nice
that.
to know.
Take it for
who is
information.
replacing.
Yeah.
Thank you for-
Yeah, for information. Okay, thank you. I thought that person was a little bit more
No.
cozy with us, so.
No, she's not.
Okay, all right.
Again, wonderful lady. I'm just not-
Okay, so now, do we have some legal, do you need
Yeah,
to go in
it'll
camera?
take 2 minutes, Jill and Tyler
Okay.
can stay, it's fine.
All right, thank you so much to the media for your good reporting, and
I will make the motion that we go on camera for our
Do we need
legal
a
matter.
2-minute recess first?
Yeah, I do.
It's just a 2-minute issue.
We're almost.
You got 1 minute?
we have.
Yeah,
one-
It's quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just
Okay.
move that we